Welcome back to another episode of Collector's Quest. I'm Tyler, here with Johnny. Johnny, I don't know what is going on right now.
This is an episode where I'm just calling it, I want to ask Tyler questions. Let's ask Tyler. That's a better episode name.
Johnny, it may not sound like it to our dear listeners. We usually put hours of prep work into each episode, and today we just sit down and hit record, and Johnny said, don't worry about this, I got it.
No, that's not exactly what I said. I said, I'm just going to ask you questions, and you're going to answer them. Good, bad, or ugly, this is what we're doing. I am tired. You are tired. We must record. This show must go on. I don't think it will hurt the quality. Plus, I wanted to do an episode like this anyways. I had an idea for some questions I wanted to ask you. You are a smart guy. Even though sometimes I yell at you on the show, I think you have a super good insight into collecting, and you have really keen answers. So I like it when we get to share those. And sometimes I overburden the show with my bullshit that I toss in there, in case people don't think I'm self-aware. So I'm just going to ask you, let you answer some goodies.
Johnny, I don't know what other people think, but you are also an insightful and genius collector, just like me.
Well, I thank you for saying so. I appreciate that. But, I like to hear from you. I want to hear what you say. And this is a little bit of a back to basics episode. I'm going to ask you some basics and just see what you say. If you want me to weigh in on something or that, you just tell me. But I was like, I'm going to guide Tyler through questions. And I have some order to this, but I had some general stuff I wanted to knock out before we get into the teeth of the episode.
All right. Yeah. What's up?
Just there's some general kind of news stuff. And that's what made me, I was like, I want to ask Tyler these questions. But this general news stuff when I was thinking about it. Did you hear about the new CGC grading standards that are happening? We didn't do any bullshit. We're just right in the episode.
New CGC grading standards. What do you mean by new grading standards?
Well, for CIB, they've published their standards for CIB for grading CIB now.
So I usually am casually interested in this stuff. I totally missed this. I had no idea this was a thing, Johnny.
Yeah. Okay. So they said what their standards are to get 100% CIB indication on their label now. So when you are buying a game from them that you're not going to have the, WADA thing happen where it doesn't have an insert or a poster or the baggie. So they are requiring baggies and all inserts for a game. I don't know if this was only specific to NES or not.
So, all right. So first of all, they definitely must have a list of 100 games where they could reliably do this for, because I guarantee they don't have every Magic of Scheherazade insert, variant of what inserts could be in there. Right?
No, there's no chance. And that was kind of my point. I looked at this and I was just like, this is almost impossible knowledge. I've harped on this many times on the show, but what goes on in factories and what happens in between minor releases. They're they took this insert out, they switched this one. The idea that they have a complete knowledge of this and are just going to be yeah, we know everything. That's a crazy claim. So I'm curious what kind of list they think they must have where they can make this claim. And they might diminish the value of CIB games this way. Have you ever seen a CIB opened without a baggie? Because I've seen that error before, which is crazy, but
a new game open without a baggie? No, I've obviously never seen that.
So I've seen a couple of those. Not a lot, but I know that happens. I've definitely, we've both gone down the Sega rabbit hole where it's just whatever insert poster you do or don't get is rolling some dice there, depending on the factories. And we know that there are differences between factories, and multiple factories produced most games. So it's going to be curious to me to see how this rolls out. And about this, I was wondering how you feel about this claim going on and this labeling. I don't think it affects the overall grade, but I think it there's a badge they put on that says it's 100% CIB. And do you think baggies, do you think a baggie should be included in that 100% CIB designation? Yeah,
Get
you do
in
think
on the
that?
baggie train.
How do we tell if a baggie is counterfeit or not?
You can't. There's no way. People are gonna.
What about the
immediately sell
styrofoam?
more fake ones.
The styrofoam. Like, we know people, like, we know there's fake styrofoam, and we know there's a way to tell, but like, are we getting down into the minutia here? Are they like under a microscope looking at the styrofoam?
It's impossible. Like, styrofoam is one of the deepest NES rabbit holes. This is like truly Final Frontier NES stuff. There are styrofoam variants. There are actually the dust cover. The dust cover, the texture and the thickness of the dust cover for the first party dust covers has variance because it changes over the years. And there's like people with deep knowledge of like the most forbidden NES collecting information who could tell like, oh, this is a later print dust cover based on the texture and the thickness. Like, that stuff is crazy to me. And even like styrofoam, like, Johnny, if someone put a bootleg styrofoam in my Complete in Box video game, I'm not really going to care. Same thing with the like little foam that goes into a Sega CD or Saturn game. You know what? If it doesn't have it, I'm going to buy one of those lots on eBay and I'm going to throw in $1 piece of foam into my game just to have the piece of foam to make it like complete. I think, yes, being a picky collector is part of being a collector. When it comes down to like the real, like absolute maniac minutia, if you're considering repro styrofoam, if that's something that really bothers you, you have to collect sealed. That's the only option.
I agree with that. And I think for the type of people that are like that, I think sealed is a good option and like how they should be. I don't know, like, I just don't know how they're going to guarantee that my 100% CIB is also 100% authentic. Like, what do I care about? 100% authentic or 100% CIB? Like, are they saying that both will be true? Do they have this amount of knowledge? Is this only for NES? I'm very curious about this. And I didn't go to the CGC website. I know I should have investigated further, but I just heard this and I was just like, wow, this is a wild claim that's happening here, or a wild thing that they're going to do.
All right, I'm not the biggest fan of graded CIB stuff. I compared to the price of video games in general, I think it's just a waste of money. But I do think WATA feels too lenient, because you always look at WATA games, it's like, oh, Tyson missing the letter, oh, a black box game missing the poster, Rad Racer missing the 3D glasses or whatever. So if CGC goes too far the other way, I think that it's too hard to meet the middle ground because there's so much we don't know. But if CGC says, yes, you send us a Tyson, it has to have the letter, you send us a Rad Racer, it has to have the 3D glasses, I think that is better than leaving it up to someone to know that they're missing something. Like, if they give you the badge of like, yes, this is 100% good, you don't even have to look it up, I think that's generally a good thing.
Yeah.
Not a huge fan of the graded CIB though, Johnny. Just get it sealed. I mean, if you're paying like a huge premium for a mint CIB, like, pay the huge premium and get it sealed. I feel like it's...
Do we feel like with more grading companies, and we talked about this, that they are going to run out of a certain supply of sealed games, especially for older stuff? They're going to have to start moving and pushing CIB. That was a thing we talked about long and long ago. Do we think this is going to start to affect the value of the inserts and other such things in the market? Or do we think people are going to just, who cares this?
I think that the video game collecting market in general, I feel, is relatively small, but man, the graded CIB, the graded games market is small, and then the graded CIB market is an even smaller subset of that. So yes, I imagine even if people just think that they need to stock up on the Tyson letter or whatever insert is in Super Mario Brothers 3 or whatever, yes, there has to be some price impact for that. I bet if they're requiring baggies, like loose baggies, will definitely go up. Or at least like cheap games that have a baggie might have a small increase in price just so people can scavenge baggies out of them so they can go grade it with CGC. I don't think there's so much interest in 100% complete in box, graded, certified by CGC video games that it will cause like a significant increase in the market. I follow some collecting categories, and every once in a while I find like the weird, obscure collecting category that went crazy in 2021 and crashed. I was recently reading some stuff about the like high-end watch market and a lot of things that crashed in the watch market. And it's just, I'm just like looking at some, like, not, this is a subset of whatever watch market, or like sneakers or things like that. Even things like that seem way bigger than collectible video games, especially like graded video games. I just see so many other collecting markets that are niche, yet they are still bigger than video games, that I don't know how a minor thing like, oh, CGC needs this insert can really affect the entire market in any way. The number of video games is just so much greater than the number of like really picky collectors.
Okay.
But also, you said like they're going to have to start pushing CIB because there's only so much supply of sealed video games. And like, I feel like that's not going to be the thing, because the thing you need to make this sustainable is you need to always have a supply of stuff coming in. And that's why on the comic side, people need to send in like literally stuff they get off the newsstand every week. So if anything, they have to make it more appealing to be grading Switch games than grading NES CIB, because again, the supply of complete and box cardboard games is technically limited. Or even if there is a lot, like a Super Mario Brothers 3, there's a lot of competition for like the ones that are worth grading, because even if there's a lot, there's only so many like 9.6 boxes. But if you convince people like, oh, grade Super Mario Wonder, get a 9.8, and that is something worthwhile to be doing, a lot more people will do that, because it's a lot easier to do that than to actually hunt for a complete and box cardboard game worth grading.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm sure that that's what they want. I mean, that's how they've built their model in comics. I can't imagine that that's not what they're trying to get to.
Yeah, so guys, get way into those graded Switch games. I'm telling you, graded limited run games, especially the trash that no one wants or will ever want to collect, that's going to be the stuff to grade. Everybody is going to love those no-name limited run games, release number 575. Everyone wants the full set of limited run games sealed.
I'm sure somebody has that, and I
bet a lot of people have that. Like, I bet more people than we think have it. Like, dozens have the full set and just buy literally everything. And I bet, because like at this point, if you have the full set, you have so much sunk cost that you probably just have to keep buying all this garbage. Like, your hobby is like keeping up with the releases of this one publisher.
The biggest publisher in games?
The biggest publisher in games. They have published more games than are on the entire N64 library alone for like the Switch and PS4.
Don't forget the Vita. I think that I probably have a comparable Vita number.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, I think it was like 200 Vita games. Or no, it's not 200 Vita games. They probably published 90 to 100 Vita games. I can't remember the exact number, but that's still quite a lot.
Now, approaching Wii U levels of just limited run games on the Vita.
Yeah. The Sega CD collection of Vita games.
So I don't know the economics of running a company. Obviously, I imagine it's very hard, but like, man, the numbers they put out, it just feels like they must be so successful.
Yeah, I don't know. Either that or it's like the margins are so narrow that they have to keep at this pace or they go under. I'm not sure what it is.
It could be that too. Be a public company. Let us buy stock in limited run games so we know all the numbers, but don't call it stock, call it fractional share ownership of a collectible company.
Oh, yeah. Which is what stocks are, but if you phrase it like that, that'll really get the collector brain going.
Yeah. Print physical stock certificates that say Forever Physical on them and put like a first edition badge on it.
Dude, first dayers, if you invest on first day, then you get a special badge next to your name.
We're available as consultants, just so you know, limited run games. Like, we're here for, you know what? Their entire business model is like capitalizing on this kind of thinking. So they probably have this stuff pretty well figured out.
Probably. But if you need people whose brains are already afraid of all of this stuff and thinking about all of this stuff, we're here. We're here because we dwell on this kind of nonsense. I often see things and I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be a good add-on. And I'm like, ugh, why did my brain even think that? That's so stupid. Anyways. All right, Tyler, thanks for your insight. Are you got any other stuff you want to talk about? Yeah, I have stuff I want to get into first. I want to ask about Halloween because we just had Halloween and I want to hear how yours went. How'd it go?
Low turnout. Whenever that happens, my wife blames that it's a weekday. But man, when I was a kid, I was like counting the days until Halloween. And
Me too.
I don't know, the kids. I don't see many kids at the age that I was the most excited for Halloween. For me, that was probably like 12 or 13. That's when I really remember sprinting between houses, trying to hit as many houses as possible. And I don't know, is trick-or-treating just not cool anymore? Because the vast majority of kids are like, I don't know, 5 to 10 years old. For me personally, like being the young teenager is when I was really like maximizing the amount of candy per night I would get.
Yeah, do you think maybe kids have just like too much stuff and like everything's cooler than candy now, and like so like who cares?
I mean, not to be the old man here, but I have to imagine there is some element of kids growing up too fast and trick-or-treating just isn't a cool thing to do. We had, I think, 2 people who looked like maybe, I don't know, 14 to 16 years old trick-or-treating alone. And if you see that, I just imagine like they definitely asked their friends to trick-or-treat and their friends were like, no, we're not trick-or-treating with you. And it just made me sad.
That is sad. I like when I see a little bit older kids. Well, what's your stance on kids who are older trick-or-treating?
I have no qualms. I think anyone can trick-or-treat. If you are an adult and you come in a costume, even a half-assed costume, like I'm totally here for it. As long as it's a half-assed costume. I don't want the adults who are just coming up and like, oh, give us candy. The night's almost over. I mean, I'll give you candy if you come to my house, but I much more appreciate any kind of effort.
Yes, I'm for anybody. If you put on a costume, I don't care. You could be 65. I don't care. You're a senior citizen. You got a costume on. Crutch on up. I'll give you some candy.
Absolutely.
Yep, I have no problems. I've heard some backlash. People like, oh, these older kids. Who cares? People complain about everything teenagers and kids do.
Right.
Like, there's everything. You're like, so the one thing, like this one wholesome activity where they just like walk around and like, this is, now you don't want them to do that either. So you want them on the street in costumes, but not collecting candy. So you want them up to something else instead. What
you just want them inside. You just don't want teenagers to be perceived. We have ruined all spaces for teenagers. This is like the one night that they're allowed to be outside because like there's nothing outside except for other people's property anymore and the street. So this is the one night they can go on everyone's property and ask for free candy. And people are like, oh, you're too old to be trick-or-treating. That's probably why I don't see any of these like teenagers. They probably get like enough houses that are like, aren't you a little bit old? And they just get discouraged and they just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I hope other people had better experiences. I took my son out and we walked around and it was really good. I had been sick kind of all week and that was kind of dumb, but we powered through it. He had a good time. I did notice, and this was weird, and other parents can weigh in on this, but I noticed the candy selection was a little bit sparser. I was originally going to do a thing where I wanted to talk to you about Halloween candy tiers after this, but it was so dumb. Like, it was such a bad sample. He got plenty of candy, but it was all like the same candy, the same 5 candy. There was like no variety at all. And all of it was like chocolate, which I know is like usually a preference, and then like suckers, but there wasn't like, he didn't even get like Sour Patch Kids or anything. None of like, that one weird house that's got like Jolly Joes and like Mike and Ike's and stuff. None of that happened. I'm just like, what is this? It was all like, here is your Reese's and here is your Snickers. That's like, I was like, that's it? What's going on? Like, not even an Almond Joy, no Butterfingers. Like 3 Musketeers were pretty loose. It was like, here's a little Hershey bar, here's a Reese's, here's a Snickers. And that was like it. Everybody had the same bag of candy at their house.
I mean, it's probably because, people just go on Amazon and Walmart now and there's only the big thing of candy that everyone probably gets, right?
I don't know. It was a little bit disappointing because I wanted to go through it with them and be like, all right, what do you think you like? I'm like, it's like, oh, I know you like all these.
Yeah, that does suck. It's just one more way that Walmart is ruining the world by ruining the variety of candy we got on Halloween. Because I remember getting like Milk Duds and just like weird shit on Halloween.
Yeah. And I always liked that. You were like, always like, I've never had one of these weird things. What's this?
Yeah.
None of that. Or like you'd get a few, at least in Southern California, you'd get a few of the Mexican candies and stuff. And you're like, oh, cool. Like I haven't had one of these things. Like, oh, it's in chili powder. Interesting. Like, but none of that even happened. I was like, it was all the most basic, condensed, no variety. I found it pretty disappointing. And I really took the wind out of my sails. I wanted to do like a count of like a major company, like major candy versus like these outliers and kind of see what they were. But there wasn't even enough interesting data for me to do it. It was like, here it is. It was really boring.
You know, that's a good idea. So we give out the most boring stuff: Snickers, Kit Kats, Reese's Cups, the stuff that you're saying you hate. But we want to be the cool house.
No, I like those. I just like the outliers thing.
Yeah, I know, but maybe we should be the cool house and give out like interesting candy. Maybe I should order some like Mexican candy or something. I hate Mexican candy. I think the spiciness is not my thing.
I don't think people love that. But like do the weird thing where you get like some full size of like a random pack of lemon heads or something. Be that house.
Oof. Yeah, all right. We could try it. I think people love our house anyway because we do give out full size candy bars because we just don't get a lot. I think, you know what, if you're an adult and you have money to blow on collectible video games and you're not like in one of these urban areas that you get hundreds of kids so you have to ration your candy, go and get some full size candy bars. They're not that expensive. And you know the joy you are bringing into the world for that kid. If you were like 7 years old and there was like one full-size Reese's in your Halloween bag, you'd be like, oh man, that was the coolest house. You could be that person making Halloween for that kid.
Yep. JD only got one full-size candy this year. He got many more full-size candies last year.
Ooh.
He got one full-size bag of M&Ms and that was it.
Oh, full-size bag of M&Ms. That's a good one, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great pull. I'm not sad about it. It was like, all right, and he likes M&M. So I'm like, awesome. You got a good one and you like it. But there was like the only like one weird person gave out a Nutri-Grain bar. I was like,
a Nutri-Grain bar?
Yeah. I was like, what is this? And I remembered them from the year before. I'm like, they gave a Nutri-Grain bar last year. Cause I remember going a Nutri-Grain bar. Interesting. And yeah, same.
Maybe
and it wasn't like a house where they were like, oh shit, we don't have candy. Grab whatever we have in the cupboard.
That could be it, yeah.
Yeah, but no, they had like an array of Nutri-Grain bars ready to go.
So I read on Discord, Johnny, someone said that they gave out Pokemon cards and it was very popular.
Oh, yeah.
And
yes, super popular. I got some for JD.
Ooh, okay. I read this at 2 p.m. on October 31st, so I did not have packs of Pokemon cards to give out. But Johnny, I am a collector, which means I have lots of stupid bullshit, specifically from the 80s and 90s. And one of the things of stupid bullshit that I happen to have squirreled away is dozens of packs of like junk wax era trading cards.
Love it.
Everything.
Well, I saw the
wrestling.
Picture.
Old cartoons, Days of Our Lives, Saved by the Bell, like Elvis, just everything. So I scooped up a bunch of these stupid trading cards and offered that instead of candy. And man, half the groups took those instead of candy. And I loved it.
That's very funny.
I would have loved to get a pack of trading cards as a kid, just like give the variety. And because, you know, when I'm a kid, like, candy feels so temporary, but just having anything as a kid is like, oh, I can keep these cards forever. So I would have definitely taken the pack of trading cards as a kid, but I have a collector brain. So of course I would have.
Yeah. Same. I watched JD open his first pack of cards and I saw the dopamine rush he got and I was like, oh God.
What was it a pack of?
It was, so Pokemon has these trick or treat packs that they put out so you can get like a case. My buddy, he owns and runs a card store. So he had a little bowl out. I went over there and I'm like, oh, I'm going to grab one of these packs for JD. It was after Halloween. It was the day after. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring one of these home. And I brought it out from him and he was like, and he already has some Pokemon cards. He has like a couple loose ones that I give him and stuff. And cause he's got an older friend who collects Pokemon. And he's like kind of into it. He's like, I want to have some Pokemon cards and it was funny because he's like, I have some cards, Dad, but I need a box to put my cards in. My cards don't have a box or a folder and I need that. Like he came up and told me this and I was just like, Oh, it's already in his brain.
Begins.
He's already got the virus. Oh no. But I'm like, okay, buddy, we're going to get you a box. Don't worry about it. But I brought this pack for him. And it was the first time he got to open it and he couldn't pull it open. I'm like, let me open it. And he pulled it out and it was just like some Halloween, like ghost type Pokemons. And there's like a little foil Pikachu jack-o'-lantern head on all of them.
Ooh.
Like just a little imprint. And he was like, oh my God, this was awesome. He was so happy. And I told my buddy Mike and I'm like, hey, he loved those stupid packs. So let me know next time when you get more of those and I'll just go buy some. And he's like, oh, I have extras. So he gave me a box of extras. A box. It's like it's like 20 of these 3-card packs. Anyways, I brought it home and I showed him and he's visibly shaking. He he could not control how excited he was. And I was like, oh man, we obviously didn't give him all of them right away. I was like, all right, you got to do certain things and then you'll earn these. But he was so excited. He was like, what can I do to be earning these Pokemon cards? What do I need to do? I'm like, okay, well, we're going to clean our room. Okay. Like just basic tasks. And he's been cracking these packs and he's like, oh, got a double. Like just seeing him go, got a double.
I mean,
like,
if this is a special Halloween set, I can't imagine there's really that many cards, right?
No. And you're not supposed to have like a whole box of them. So I gave him like one of the things I did. He was going to see some friends today. I'm like, okay, here's a way you can earn it. Be a good sharer. Bring your friends a pack of cards and then you'll earn an extra pack of cards for being a good sharer and stuff. So, he's going to get a full set of whatever these is. I don't imagine there's more than like 20 cards or whatever that you can actually get. Anyways, that's how our Halloween went. And, yeah, if you can find those Pokemon packs, those were very popular amongst kids. I heard many stories of the Pokemon cards as well.
Johnny, I'm going to be the evil house. Next year, I'm giving out MetaZoo.
Ooh.
You can get a booster box of MetaZoo, an entire booster box, 36 full-size packs for $10. That is how much MetaZoo crashed. It is worthless.
I don't know if you know, my buddy, like I said, he owns and operates a store. He sells lots of singles on TCG Player and everything. I watch him open cards. Like, he's like, all right, well, we got to open 180 boxes of this set. So he'll be opening and like, I'll help him open and stuff. And he's just like, oh yeah, anything that's worth less than $1 doesn't matter. Just put it in the trash.
I mean, yeah, it's just not worth probably sorting and shipping that kind of stuff.
No. So like he'll get it and he's like, okay, these aren't worth anything. Like first thing he does takes out, like that might be 1 or 2 commons or uncommons that are worth something, but yeah, it just takes up just right in the garbage and just like giant bags full. And I'm just thinking of all the kids who would be like losing their shit for the thousands of cards he literally just throws in the garbage. Anyways. Yeah,
true collectors
it's
only care
wild.
About things of value, Johnny, not the bulk.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got a store to operate. Storing that much bulk, he doesn't just sell Magic cards. He's a pretty successful card store, so he's got all these different games. He can't be, if he kept all the bulk and the churn of sets now, he would have to own a warehouse, and it would never be worth the cost.
A warehouse full of
storage.
Like the garbage.
Yeah. So, anyways. That's how everything went, and now I think maybe time to move over to some questions, some Asking Tylers.
Well, Johnny, since we don't really have a topic this episode, I do want to bring up one more thing.
Oh, okay.
The Polymega Collection was announced yesterday. Have you heard of this?
No, what is this? I have a Polymega, but
I can't tell if it's interesting. My heart is telling me probably not, but Polymega, if you don't know, I don't remember if it's an FPGA console or an emulator console, but it's this platform it's a box you hook up to your TV, and you can buy different modules for it that lets you not only plug in original controllers, but connect original cartridges. And the idea is to have one game console that will play everything. So similar to a Mister, except you're always connecting real cartridges and real hardware to it rather than fucking around.
The other thing it does is it will read them and rip them onto the system itself. So once you put it in, it can just be there.
Yeah. So pretty interesting console. I would say Mister is probably the best single platform for game preservation. or you know what, probably a computer is the best single platform for game preservation, but maybe in the top 3, top 5, Polymega has a place because it is one system that plays a lot of different things. And they are releasing on physical media different important games throughout history, which, I've always asked for the Criterion Collection of video games. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but here's kind of another fancy special edition type thing. And they announced 2 things. They have an Asteroids pack and a Karate Champ pack. And each of them has like 6 or 7 games on it. And so the Asteroids pack, I don't think it is just Asteroids. It has like 6 space-themed games. And I hate that they call it like Asteroids because it doesn't really... Let me go get the games list. It's got Orbit, Gravitar, Lunar Lander, Asteroids, Asteroids Deluxe, Super Asteroids, and Missile Command, and Space Duel. It's just like a bunch of space games. But I think it's a little interesting that they are releasing all this stuff on a console that's kind of meant to play all these different systems.
I'll just say one of the best parts about the Polymega is that it, unlike a lot of systems, is it reads disc-based systems. So if you have a Sega CD, a Sega Saturn, Turbo CD, like this is a system that makes it easy to play those, which has been my favorite part of it. But yeah, interesting that they're even doing this. I mean, because it takes them and rips them and basically becomes like a hub where you can play games. Also does PlayStation, forgot to mention that. Interesting that they're doing like this limited version of these games. They're also including a limited edition pin with the first bundle or whatever.
Like, whatever. Like, I don't even care. Yeah. I hope they're not limited edition. I don't think that they are specifically limited edition or anything.
No, it's this, you can buy it. They're $40, by the way. The first 2 packs are they up for sale right now? Yeah, you can add them to your cart right now on their website.
And they're not too stupid. Like a lot of these big special edition things that come in like these big boxes full of stickers and all this like garbage that you don't need. It's like a jewel case. I think it might be a big jewel case, but it's just a CD and it comes with like a sticker or something. But it's not like an overly packaged thing. And so the thing I like about this, so if you were just talking about like being able to play games throughout history, probably the best single platform that's not a computer is probably the Nintendo Switch, because everything has been re-released on the Nintendo Switch. The thing is, 5 years from now, Nintendo is going to have a new thing. And what are they going to do? Everyone's going to re-release all the same crap onto the new thing. And they're going to be like, oh, now buy everything over here. The thing with the Polymega, theoretically, is that it would remain the same thing over time because it doesn't need to get better hardware and play all the new stuff. It just needs to play, all the historical consoles that it already plays. So similar to a Blu-ray, which doesn't really change every single movie, almost gets a release on Blu-ray. You don't have to buy a new movie format every 5 years anymore. Polymega could be a stable platform for this kind of game preservation. Do I think this is really going anywhere? Probably not. This is probably a stupid cash grab from Atari. But if there was a platform to release physical games on where you could see the entire history of games in one place, or at least a good chunk of it, I think it's kind of interesting. I think it's I would say it's like a good reason for Polymega to exist. Maybe with just 2 packs of games, they're not even like anywhere near like say Evercade in this sense. But I don't know. I'm interested to see where this goes. If this is just a couple Namco Museum type releases that they're going to do, or they actually do genuinely get interesting and important games. Because there are the sort of perennial re-released games, like all the same Atari games, all the same Data East games. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Asteroids and Karate Champ are the first 2 collections. But if they get something interesting and unique, maybe this goes somewhere.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm curious what happens here. One of the interesting games on Karate Champ that like most people don't get to play, it's like Karnov's Revenge is on there, which is a Neo Geo game that you get to play. That's an interesting inclusion.
Sure.
That's just like it's not on that disc. It comes with a separate disc in that bundle.
It's going to be, I guarantee it's on Switch. If it's on Polymega, I guarantee it's on Switch. It is. It's in the Arcade Archive series.
Sure.
But you know what? One day your Switch isn't going to be hooked up anymore. That's my point. I recently have just decided, like, my PS4, I'm done with PS4. There's too much stuff under my TV. I'm never playing my PS4 again. Forget it. I'm just kind of done with everything. I gave up on my Wii U a little while ago. I think the only modern console I've hooked up is my Switch, and everything else is something old. And it's going to happen eventually. It seems like Switch will last forever, but it won't. This is terrible because I know, what are the chances that Polymega's $40 collection here lasts forever? I don't know. There's only 2 releases out right now. I am cautiously optimistic. I think some people in our Discord were just immediately calling it a stupid cash-in, which is probably a better guess.
Maybe, but it's a pretty low risk too. It's $40 each. It's not like super egregious. And for what it's worth, I've liked the Polymega. I've said a few times here that, I've had good experience with it and have enjoyed what I've been able to do. And again, if you've got something like Neo Geo CD is a perfect console to like be interested in, and then go get a Polymega, because playing on a Neo Geo CD, if you've ever done this, well, you could load the game and then by the time this episode ends, you might be able to play the game. This fixes a lot of that. So, I like it for what it is. We'll see where it goes. It's also crazy that this went from like a console I was 100% was going to be vaporware to something that exists and is now doing this.
Jason of PlayStation Library, absolute fame, also talks a lot about how great his Polymega is. So I don't have one. I probably will never have one. But anyway, I thought it was a cool thing to bring up. What they need to do is, so there is this stupid kind of perennial re-release things, like all the stuff on the Switch, all the stuff on the Evercade. If they want to prove that they're kind of serious about this, I want to see them get some of the biggest games that are kind of missing from like that Evercade circuit. Like Evercade has so many collections of like all these classic games. Get something not in there and then prove to me that this is going to be a worthwhile collection.
All right, Tyler. So the main thrust of the episode, I want to ask you questions. And basically, if I'm a new collector and I want to hear from the best, I want to hear your answers. And we've done stuff like this before where we've talked about this, but your collecting journey has been wild. I think you went from whatever to imports and to history. You've had like a pretty interesting arc, I would say, as a collector. And now you have got to the point of you're just filling things in. You're at a pretty chill place in your collecting where cool stuff comes up. You're not like in the grind of collecting sets, but you've done a lot of that. So I think you've got a lot of perspective, and I'm just going to ask you some newbie questions and see what your take is.
All right.
With now all your advanced perspective. Again, and this does change. Like our answers we could be asked these questions 10 times over 10 years, and they may change every year or, as our perspective changes. So that was what I was thinking about. I was like, man, I was asked a question. I was like, my perspective on this question has changed over time. I bet Tyler's has too. And that's how I arrived at this. So if I'm a new collector and I've just said, I like games. Let's say I'm 30 years old. I have some money now. I'm established. I'm paying off my student loans. What is the first thing I should start collecting?
Full set of sealed GameCube.
Oh, good.
What you can't, if you're asking someone what to collect, like don't collect. You're just blowing your money. Like if you're asking what to collect, I feel like you're collecting to get likes on Instagram. Because you're asking like, what is the cheapest path to getting lots of likes on Instagram or something? Like you want to know like what is the most cost efficient way to get something that someone else thinks is cool. Because I'm not saying that you need something interesting to collect, but like, all right, if you're 30, like you're probably into GameCube, right? Everyone who is 30 years old right now grew up with a GameCube. So if you're into that, like start collecting GameCube. Otherwise, if you're still if you're into Switch stuff, people love collecting Switch stuff. There is no right answer on what to collect, Johnny, except for the Nintendo Entertainment System, probably. There was a whole episode we did on what are the best consoles to collect, and top of every category is basically the NES. For both what is available cheap, historical importance, and how good of a game you can get for the price, NES basically comes up at the top of every single category, in our opinion. I think the one thing that ended up better is if you had only $1,000 to spend on your entire collection, I think maybe N64 gives it a run for its money, because you can literally buy every N64 game that matters for $1,000. But $1,000 in NES also goes a pretty far way into getting some of the best games ever made. Not some of the best games ever made, but some of the most collectible games ever made, let's say.
Okay, good answer. That totally fair. Is it better to collect games for one system or multiple?
I'm going to change your question on, is it better to focus on some group of things? So it doesn't have to be a system, but when I started collecting, 2006 or so, I would just buy whatever. And there were still, and by whatever, I mean basically anything before, say, N64, because that's kind of when the cutoff of when I stopped thinking games were cool to collect, at least. And there's only a dozen or so systems that you would realistically find in the wild and collect at that point. But now, if you go out, there's dozens of systems you could possibly collect, let alone all the different subsets, limited things, sealed things. And if you just spread your money out across all these categories, you will have the biggest dumpster fire of a collection. Unless it is that dumpster fire specifically collected with purpose, these are all the games that I grew up with. These are all the games that I've beaten. These games have some kind of overarching theme to them. But unless you are the last gamer, who is an ex-investment banker who owns probably the biggest game collection in the world, at least publicly, I think focusing is a lot more fun. So you won't be able to buy everything you want right away. I know this is a hard thing to come to terms with, but if you are a collector, there are things you are going to want that you aren't going to be able to have. So rather than saying, oh, I have $20 burning a hole in my pocket, what can I get that I kind of want for $20? Just sit down, make a list of the things you actually want. Say you want the NES Black Box set. You want those 27 games. And you can only spend your game collecting money on that until you have that full set. And that means that, yes, at some point you will have $100 and you'll be able to buy a gumshoe or something. But then you might be saving up for a while when you get up to that Donkey Kong Jr. math, and the only way you are ever going to complete your goal is if you actually have the discipline to not buy other random bullshit while you are going for that goal. Because in some amount of months, if you keep saving up, you will eventually be able to afford a Donkey Kong Jr. math. But if you keep saying oh, limited run games, this new Castlevania thing, the Wii U is so cheap, I should get the full set for $2,500. If you keep doing that shit, you'll never have the set of black box games that you want.
Okay.
So put back into the context of your question, I would say one system, but I'm also saying maybe don't collect full sets. Maybe collect a subset, like the black box set.
Okay. Should I focus on sealed games, CIB games, or loose games?
I don't know, whatever you want.
Whatever I want? So I should just collect however I want? Is there some advantages? Can you walk me through the advantages of one versus the other? And does Loose Cart have any advantages? Are there any pros there?
I mean, the pros is that they're cheaper, Johnny. But even, I know I've said this a lot on the show, but even in the era where complete in box and sealed prices have gone to the moon the past 5 years, I still think that complete in box is just such a better deal than loose games, card only games. I'm just going to go look up a game right now. Give me a cool NES game. Oh, I know one. Magic of Scheherazade
Mario 3.
on the NES. Wow, that is a hard one to spell for price charting. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut this while I figure out how to spell this, Johnny. How do you spell that?
Isn't just Magic of S? Doesn't that bring it
The
up?
first thing that comes up for Magic of S is Aladdin's Lamp from MTG 4th edition. Thanks, price charting, for including trading card prices. Everybody goes to price charting to look up Magic the Gathering prices. That's my source for Magic the Gathering prices.
It's SCHEH.
All right, I'm here.
Okay.
Magic of Scheherazade is $21 loose and $62 complete. And that seems about standard. I'd say, 3 times the price of a cartridge to get it complete in box. Well, actually, so this is actually the ratio is actually exactly the same for the price difference as to how many are selling. So there are 3 times as many sales for loose cartridges as there are for complete in box. And the complete in box is 3 times the price. I would say for a lot of games, especially common games, there are more loose cartridges available than will be the multiple that gets you to complete in box. So let's say, Super Mario Brothers 3, there are probably over 10 times as many cartridges of Super Mario Brothers 3 than there are complete in box, just because everyone had that cartridge and kids don't save packaging. So when I see that it takes 15 cartridges of Super Mario Brothers 3, or there's 15 cartridges available for every complete in box, then it just makes me feel like the complete in box is a better deal because that ratio, Johnny.
And another thing to consider on this ratio, if you break it down, the complete in box is 3 times as much as just the loose cart, but a complete in box, the inserts, things we were talking about earlier, those don't actually stack up in the value that way. So a lot of times those just wind up being a couple dollars extra. The difference between a $62 version of that game versus a $70 game. But if you had to go buy those inserts individually, they're going to cost you much more than that. So just another thing to consider. That ratio, that everyone likes to break it down as CIB, cart instruction box. And that's not a fully complete game. And now if you have grading companies looking to be more precise with their CIB games, then this is another factor to start considering.
Video games are, one, not a super popular collectible category, and 2, it is definitely not hyper optimized it's not one of these hobbies where everything has a really determined price based on condition and variant and all that kind of stuff, and you have hundreds of people just flipping and trading this stuff all day. You look at Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or comics, a 9.4 Hulk 181, that has a price. There's a going rate for those. Whereas the graded video game market is so much smaller in comparison. One game in a particular grade might come up once or twice a year, and the price swings so wildly in that time because the market changes so much that things don't really have a price like that. So you look at that, you go to the Hulk 181 and a 9.2 to a 9.4, it might be thousands of dollars difference. It might be double the price depending on the book you're looking at. Whereas in video games, a lot of the time, decent complete in box to really nice complete in box is maybe double, a lot of times not even double the price. And, we've been saying this for years, even through the WATA stuff. People are hunting the most mint stuff out there. You're not going to see very many games where the difference from a decent complete in box to a near mint complete in box is 10 times the price, which is something very common in cards and comics. I think that the price range for video games, potentially because of sites like price charting that put one price on the entire thing, regardless of condition, I think that really anchors prices to a particular thing. And that has been the predominant way of thinking for decades, is that a complete in box game has a price, not a price based on the condition. Or if there is a price based on the condition, it gets a bump. It doesn't get a multiple. So What I'm saying is, if you find a mint complete in box of Journey to Silius, whatever stupid game you're looking for, it's got the shrink wrap and everything. It's got the baggie. It's got all the inserts. And yeah, it's 2.5 times the price. That is so much better of a deal than you would get in any other hobby. And go and look at the sold listings for that Journey to Silius. You probably won't find another copy that's in mint condition if you do find that mint condition copy. So whatever the multiple is in video games, I think it's basically always worth it. Basically, to both buy it complete in box and to upgrade that complete in box to a really nice complete in box. I just don't think that compared to other hobbies, our prices are as crazy as they could be. And then you get to sealed and it is crazy, but complete in box, I don't think the prices are really crazy.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Is there any world in which we think collecting digital versions of games is something we should do?
Yeah, no. So I recently found a really old spreadsheet. I think it was a spreadsheet from 2008. And one of my to-dos, I had like a little to-do list in the spreadsheet, was to put my Steam library in there. Because I didn't want just a record of the physical games I owned. I wanted one document that showed me all the games that I could play. So now, just looking back on like what digital games I quote unquote own, there was some, I think it was like a Ukrainian aid bundle that I got. And it was like a humble bundle type thing. It had 1,000 indie games on it. And like to think that I would go and keep track of those 1,000 games that I technically have a license to sitting somewhere. Like who knows how long that license is valid for. Like maybe this was like, it's tied to like some Humble Bundle website that'll disappear in 10 years and I won't be able to download those games anymore. It's just it's really strange to keep track of digital licenses like that because they are specifically not something you own. It is basically a long-term rental. And then like you could really kind of try to, I don't know, get into the minutia of like, oh, I have all these games on GOG though, and I've downloaded and backed up a DRM free copy of the game. So I do kind of, in a sense, own that game forever. They can't take it away from me. But then you get into things where like, I'm trying to think of an example. Elder Scrolls Daggerfall is a game that used to cost money, and one day Bethesda released it for free. So if you had a digital copy of Daggerfall, and then Bethesda released it for free, does that now no longer count as part of your collection because it's technically a worthless free game? And if it does, do you need to count every free game that you have in your collection? I mean, I don't think people listening to this podcast need to be convinced that collecting digital is maybe not a very sensible thing to do, but I'm a big fan of digital hoarding all our files forever, not so much considering them collecting.
Okay, I just wanted to see if your opinion had changed at all.
All right. Again,
we had a new understanding.
To, I guess maybe to give us some context, Johnny, I'm 35 years old and I hate technology. I think maybe if you grow up with an iPad and your purchases on the App Store and your skins in Fortnite and your Robux and things like that, and you don't really grow up with physical cartridges and packs of Magic cards and comic books and all these physical things, I think your entire perspective on what ownership is, you might grow up thinking differently than me. I think that potentially someone who is half my age might have a different perspective on digital ownership and might consider it more real. And you know what? There's crypto bros who think NFTs are real. So I'm not saying my perspective is correct, but it is.
Okay. Now I want to kind of move towards understanding value of our games and of our hobby. So I'm going to ask you a few questions that are geared that way. You ready for them?
Yeah, sure.
How can I tell if a game is a good investment?
Well, you just look at the price since 2019, and you'll see that it's a straight bar up, and you just convince yourself that it's going to keep doing that forever because the game collecting hobby can only grow. and just laugh at anyone who tells you to put your money into the stock market where it has consistently grown for about 100 years. After all, just look at the price of Bitcoin since 2010. It has been a straight bar up. That's how everybody knows that Bitcoin is the only stable and solid investment. Because in the past, it has gone straight up, Johnny.
Oh, okay. So that's how I should tell?
So for something to be a good investment, I feel like, well, I don't know. Like, do you need to have some kind of unique information or insight in predicting where the market is going to go? Because yes, you could say that something like mint condition sealed Super Mario Brothers is an investable video game or something like that. But the way prices have gone, like games that used to sell for $1,000 can, like, we're selling for like over $100,000 at the peak, which was 2021. And now those have crashed, a lot of them back down to earth, you know, losing dozens of percent in value, even the ones that you would consider investments, quote unquote. The problem with the investment class of video games, if we're going to talk about, you know, the Marios and Zeldas and Chrono Triggers and all that, is the prices that they sell at. People are basically getting the value of like what the investment would be worth in the future now, if you know what I'm saying. Like, if you would look at something and say like, oh, well, if Chrono Trigger grows in value by X percent every year because it's a blue chip collectible, it'll be worth $40,000 one day, and so it sells for $40,000 now, regardless if anyone cares about Chrono Trigger in 20 years. Johnny, I have no idea how to tell if your video game is investable. There's no such thing as investment in a collectible like this, especially in a category like the high end, quote unquote, graded game category that has sort of come into its own in the past 5 years. It's all speculation. So you pick it and you're speculating on whether it goes up in value, and maybe you're smart and it does. Or maybe you just found something unpopular and you're trying to convince yourself that it will be cool. There is definitely someone out there who is like, man, these N-Gage games are so rare. One day someone is going to figure out that N-Gage games are super rare and all these games are going to be worth over $700. That is a speculation that you could make. You should, is what I'll say.
Well, I mean, are they buying Elder Scrolls and Catan?
Catan,
yeah, Catan. I don't know why. I don't know what's a weird emphasis on Catan. Catan.
What is Catan in terms of video games?
The board game Catan. There's an N-Gage version that goes for a little bit of money.
Oh, you're talking about N-Gage games. Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know, all right. I have no idea what's a good investment, Johnny. You know, if you're going to invest in video games, I think that it's one of these things where the market is so small at the top end in terms of like this graded stuff, because look at the pop reports compared to other hobbies. Pokemon is like the most insane thing in the world. There is a card, it's the Moonbryon that came out like 2021. There's something like 30,000 PSA 10s, and that card's like $1,000. It makes absolutely no sense. That's just how much demand there is in the Pokemon market. You look at some of like the best video games that is possible to own. You're thinking like first print Zeldas and early Super Mario Brothers and whatever, you know, the Chrono Triggers and all that kind of stuff. You know, we're talking dozens probably. And a lot of the top stuff, it's like there's one or two Zelda first prints that are like above a 9.0. So if you really are going to speculate in video games, just get the best stuff, because you basically just want to bet that the video game market will grow from where it is now. Why would you place a bet on some stupid Game Boy Advance game or something? You might as well just buy the best thing, because there's only like a couple of them, and just hope that the video game market grows. That's what I would do probably. I have my doubts on whether a first print Zelda will go from, you know, $500,000 to $5 million faster than you would get there through a safer investment. But
can I bring up a safe investment?
Oh, what's the safe investment?
Vanguard S&P 500 index fund.
Oh yeah, or get that VT Sachs, get the Vanguard index fund.
Yep, that's what this is. It's the Vanguard index.
Johnny,
fund.
people people who speculate in collectibles don't like when people tell them to buy index funds.
I'm gonna.
You know what? There is something to it because you know what? Stocks aren't fun. I bet owning a first print sealed Zelda is fun. Actually, I bet
so
it's
much
kind of
more
stressful.
You know what? I have my 401k and my diversification of stocks and everything, my little portfolio that's bullshit, not worth very much money. But I have it. Do you know what's a lot more fun? Is buying video games. It's more fun each and every day. But that should be a lesson. I don't think your finances should necessarily have to be fun. You should not require a dopamine hit from your finances to make you interested in making your finances better. Your finances should be a responsible look into the future of your life, not, this feels good. Your hobby should be that way. Your hobby should be fun. It should bring you joy. And if it happens to also gain some money, then great. That's not, I'm not telling people like, don't buy games. That's not where I am. Clearly, I'm not that guy. But maybe dial back the investment and dial up you like your hobby and you find it fun.
Johnny, I'm just going to give an example here. Super Mario World, above a 9.0, and even like a 9.0, I think is like kind of a dicey grade. Like if I'm really buying something that's like super nice for my collection / investment, I would want a 9.4. I think video game grades are pretty loosey-goosey, and 9.4 is where I'd say like, okay, it's near mint. So let's say 9.4, Super Mario World, not player's choice. And I'm also going to discount the Canadian version. I don't know why that's there. There are 6 sealed copies. So, I think the number of quote unquote investable video games is pretty small. And I would just get one of those things. I wouldn't try to find something that's $100 that I think will be worth $500. Because you know what? Why isn't it already worth $500? You're going to be basically that guy on social media who's just like constantly pumping something that no one actually cares about. I would just buy the thing that someone already cares about.
I'm going to go back to the S&P 500 here for just a second too. Are you familiar with the bet that Warren Buffett had with the hedge fund managers?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you aren't familiar with this, and this applies to games in the same way, buying an index, the Vanguard index fund, is like the least sexy thing in stocks you can buy, but it's very stable and it just does the work, right? It's super basic. A hedge fund manager, they have a lot of leverage in how they can buy, the ways they can invest. They can do a lot of different things. This is not a finance episode, so I don't want to like fully get into all that. But the bet was Warren Buffett will just put his money into the S&P 500 Vanguard index fund, and the hedge fund managers could do whatever they want. They could go be total stock bros. And they made this bet. And they made it at a time, like it started out, Warren Buffett was looking okay. And that's right when the housing crash happened. So when all the stocks plummeted, everyone lost their ass. It was a 10-year bet. And even though all the stocks crashed, everything went to hell, you have a whole team of hedge fund managers who have all the tools available to them versus Warren Buffett just putting his money only on this one index fund. Not only did he win, he annihilated them. It was he completely crushed them. These people who have all these tools, the smartest people, because in a way, it's still gambling. So these are people who have lots of tools around them to analyze what may be these obscure things that they can pick and hit on. And they still weren't able to do all of that and even take the stuff they knew about well and just invest in that. They couldn't do it. And this is their job. They've gone to college. There's tools upon tools to make you a better investor. And these are people who have high degrees in that. They couldn't do it beating just the basic index fund. So to equate that back to games, buy Zelda and buy Mario Because if you are investing and you're trying to find all these little obscure things, think of this. Think of yourself as a hedge fund manager trying to beat the S&P 500 Vanguard Index Fund. You're probably not going to hit. You might have a few hit here and there, but overall, the cream of the crop, the ones, the stable, your Coca-Colas are always going straight up. That's all they've done. And that's a much safer bet, and you're going to just get a better yield over time. You might have over a short view, like, a month, a year, that might not be true, but long-term, that's what we're looking at. So I think about this example a lot when I hear people talking about these things they're going to do, or when they talk about their big wins and it's been only like 3 months. This helps ground me. I don't know how often you think of this example, but I keep it in the back of my mind as a little tool to keep me responsible.
I think something that motivates me more is I know I don't sell video games, like pretty much at all, but I know a lot of interesting video games. I've just learned about a lot of interesting video games. I look at video games a lot. I think there is stuff that is undervalued. I always think there's stuff that's undervalued because I'm always looking into like these days anyway, I'm looking into like what is evergreen historically? What are games that will always matter? What are games that when people look into the history of this genre, this console, that will always come up and will always be on the radar? And just to give the first example I could think of, the Atari 2600 gatefold games. The original, I think it's 9 games that came out of the Atari 2600 came in like gatefold boxes with yellow text. These games are like $30 complete in box compared to like you look at an NES black box game, they're like $200 each. And you know what? I don't think that these games are going to go to the moon, but also I don't think they'll ever completely not matter. And I also think that Atari Complete in Box is very undervalued. I think people treat Atari like everything is out there super available, common in mint condition. And you look for like the most common like game that everyone needs to own. You can think of like Adventure. Try to find like a mint condition Adventure on eBay, and like there might be one. And like if you need a near mint Super Mario Brothers 3, it's available. But, with some of these Atari games, it's not. And so, in my mind, Adventure would be maybe something I speculate on in mint condition, except if I took all of the 2,000 games that I think are undervalued and bought them, I would have no money and a warehouse full of video games that I would never sell. And that is not an investment. I have just turned into a hoarder. Because I never think is like, oh, now's the right time to sell Adventure on Atari 2600. I would think like, oh no, maybe in 5 years it will double, so I should just hold on to it. And since I've handpicked all of the games I think are just going to the moon, I never think is the time to sell out. Plus, it's a lot of effort to sell out. So I don't have any actual realized gains there. I just have a room full of trash, and I'm a hoarder. There's I hate to bring up reserved investments, Johnny, because I know you're not the biggest fan, but he does have an episode that basically says if you just buy a bunch of collectibles and put them on your shelf, you're not investing or speculating in anything. You are just a hoarder, which is why I don't do that as an investment.
I'm comfortable being just a hoarder or a collector. That guy, he paints a line too fine, and he does not. That guy is not a collector at all. He does not really have collector brain, I don't think. So I don't really think he understands it. But I also am unsure of his actual grasp on investing.
It looks like he's just fueled. But I think the point is, I think there are probably a lot of people who think they are Pokemon investors who really just have a bunch of binders full of cool Pokemon cards, and they will definitely hold on to them until they lose value. That's 100% going to happen. And that's why I never preach this as an investment. Like, if you enjoy collecting and you enjoy the hobby, then you should just do that. Like, but divest yourself from the idea
that this is an investment, and I think you'll be happier. And you won't constantly be looking at your collection as like, oh, it didn't make enough money, it didn't do enough things for me. If the only point of your collection is just to bring you joy, then you are going to be a lot happier looking at your collection. And then if one day you do sell it and it's worth some money, then great. I can't tell you how many hobbies people have that are absolutely worth $0. They will spend money into them and they're like with zero expectation of ever getting anything out. The hobby always just costs money, right? Like, let's say you're into athletics, right? Like you're on a sports team, you're constantly buying new gear, you're upgrading your stuff, like say golf. Constantly upgrading clubs, like maybe you can sell them, but a lot of the times they just get worn out. They're not worth anything. We are lucky enough to have a hobby where the old stuff sometimes regains some value. So I always thought if I bought something and then somebody paid me 30% of what I paid for it later, like that was pretty good because I already got 100% of its value out of it. Especially if you're just playing games. It's like, oh, that's cool. I loved that game for 3 years or whatever. And now someone wants to pay me like $20 for it. Awesome. Like, I can't believe that happened. I got my $60 worth of joy out of it. So,
I mean, in terms of collectibles as a hobby, I think that is another great reason to buy Complete in Box, Johnny, because with collectibles, it's not money that's a sunk cost. If you get into astronomy and you buy a telescope, that is a money down the drain. Like maybe you'll sell it for 60% of its value down the line. If you buy that nice Urban Champion for $200, you get a nice hang tab, very likely it is not going to zero. Like, the market for such a weird market like Black Box NES games will probably change over time. But you're probably getting most of your money, if not more, out of that when you go to sell. Whether you're going to beat inflation or the market, probably not. But, that is money that is basically stored in something, not lost like other hobbies.
Yeah, it is an advantage of the thing we are doing. Okay. You ready to move on to the next question?
Yeah, what do you got?
Okay, keeping it in the idea of investing and value. What are the man, I can't talk. What are the advantages or benefits of grading games?
Yeah, we're really sticking with the investment and grading questions, huh?
Well, this is a value question, so I'm trying to ascertain if there are nuggets to take out of this.
Well, there are a bunch of people with a lot of money, and they will only buy your sealed game if it's authenticated and in a certain grade. So if you find a sealed Super Mario Brothers 3, it makes absolutely no sense to throw that up on eBay unless it's like particularly in like kind of shitty condition and you're hoping that whatever eBay price you get is maybe more than you would get for like, your 7.5B graded game. But, there are people in the graded market who only search on like Golden Auctions and Heritage Auctions and eBay, WATA, and CGC graded games because they just don't want to deal with all of the uncertainty and returns and things not being in the condition they thought. Like that is the value proposition of why you would spend like $75 to grade a game, is to basically tap into the market of people who spend $1,500 on Frankenstein for Atari 2600 because it's the nicest sealed copy on earth.
So basically using it as a proxy, as an authentication service.
I mean, if you're asking the question, like, why would anyone ever get their games graded? It's to sell into that market, yes. Like, if you want your games graded, like, you already know why you want them graded. Like, maybe you are collecting sealed games and, like, I want all the Pokemon games in a 9.0 and above. Like, you already have that drive to want the graded games. But if you don't understand why people are grading, like, imagine if you were buying a sealed Super Mario RPG. It's like a $4,000 game. Are you going to spend $4,000 on it on like this fragile shrink wrap? You have to trust that someone's going to package it properly, because if it rips, you have to deal with a return, and like, oh, you got $4,000 on the line dealing with a return with some random guy on eBay right now. or like you get it and there's a dent that you didn't realize in the pictures, and like all of a sudden it's in way worse condition. You probably blew $1,000 because it's in worse condition than you thought. Or you just get the graded one. It's a lot harder to ship them poorly because they're already packaged in a big acrylic case. It's authenticated. You know the shrink wrap is probably real. Will you spend like $42.50 for that? Probably. I think most people would, if they were in the market for a $4,000 game, they would spend the extra money to just get the one that they know is real. They're not going to have any hassle with it. It's not going to come with any problems. That's why people grade sealed video games.
Okay. Is there any do any of those advantages not apply to, I mean, obviously some don't apply to CIB games, but is there any other that you would say grading a CIB game or a loose cart, any advantages there? Like anything we can take? Is there any good reason for us to do that?
Video games are a cheap hobby, dude. Like even if you're buying like a Little Samson, like Little Samson is probably the exception in your collection. Like you got a complete in box Little Samson, you probably have every other NES game, and the vast majority of those other NES games were probably less than like $200. And it's just not worth grading a game that's worth less than $200 because it adds so much in value, or it adds so much to the cost of the game. And at the end of the day, you have the same object. You just have like, okay, now I have my copy of Magic of Scheherazade, and it's got a big plastic bulky case around it. So, I mean, I think there is value to, in some very special circumstances, if you've got a Stadium Events cartridge, like, yeah, I would spend the extra $100 for a graded copy of Stadium Events just so I know someone has looked at it and it's real, and I'm not going to deal with any surprises once I get it. But yeah, for the vast majority of things, I think if you don't already know why someone would grade a complete in box, yeah, just don't grade it. It's just not worth it.
Okay. So you talked about this a little bit, and I'm just going to ask again, just to be very clear. How important is condition specific to our hobby? In other hobbies, it is the most important thing. Is that true here?
Go on Reddit/r/game collecting, and I don't know, post buy like a mint condition Pokemon Red, which will cost you like, I don't know what, $500, $600 for like a really nice one. I want shrink wrap and everything, and tell people what you bought it for. And like half the comments will be like, what are you talking about? That's only like $297 on price charting. You got ripped off. So yes, condition is important in games. Like, yes, you paid a premium for that Pokemon Red, and like half of the hobby will think you're an idiot because you paid more than the price charting price. So, I mean, it's important to some people, and I think it should be more important. I think it basically can only get more important over time, is my take. And another reason that people are grading complete in box is because, you know, a lot of these cardboard boxes, there aren't many mint ones, like truly mint, the 9.6, whatever. So sometimes people see, there'll be like a First Print Zelda 9.4 condition, and it goes for like some outrageous price, like multiple thousands of dollars. And people will basically complain about that. The problem is, like, you can't get one in that condition for the price charting price. So I think that there are people who like hunt like the super mint boxes to grade them. It's not something I'm into. It's a reason that some of the nicest boxes are not on the market anymore, like the regular people games market, eBay. But also, I don't think, you know, I have said it 100 times, condition doesn't matter as much as it should in this hobby.
Okay. So keeping kind of with value and authenticating and the idea of rarity here, what is the best way to identify a rare or valuable game?
What's the best way to identify a rare or valuable game?
Yeah,
I don't know, type it into eBay and look at the prices.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I told you, I'm keeping it as a know-nothing. I'm just starting. I'll give you my premise.
I think determining a valuable game is pretty easy. But determining a rare game, here's how you determine a rare game. You're holding the game in your hand. You go to ebay.com, you type the name of that game in, you hit completed listings. Have any of this game sold in the past 3 months? If yes, maybe not a truly rare game. That's kind of my standard.
Okay.
I mean, there are some games that are like exceptionally popular and they kind of like trade hands more than you would think for how few copies are available. And then there are games like, I don't know, like probably a Complete in Box Super Bowling that's probably overrepresented on eBay because not many people are spending thousands of dollars on a stupid, pointless N64 set filler type thing. So like there's probably 3 copies that have just been sitting on eBay forever because no one's buy it nowing it for $7,000. But in general, I think if you're really looking for something rare, the determining factor is it actually available at any reasonable price? And like, yeah, all right, if there's a Hagane Complete in Box for $40,000, we can discount that one. But if you're telling me about like some Switch game, like you think like this shovelware Switch game that was released for Christmas 2018 is going to be truly rare in the future, if you type it in on eBay and there's 4 other copies available, like I'm questioning how many like are actually out there. Because if this game doesn't matter and there's still 4 copies on eBay when no one is looking for it and trying to flip it, how many copies are going to show up when someone suddenly decides that it's worth something and people are going to start looking for it and flipping it? So that's kind of my... That's the method. Is it on eBay?
All right. That's good to know. All right. Once upon a time, we used to have guides and stuff where we would go, Digit Press and stuff, but I think you're right that this is now the way. You can kind of tell.
I mean, the most recent guides were made by friend of the show, Joe, and the way he did it was he counted how many cartridges and how many Complete in Box have been on eBay in the past 6 months, I think, is his metric. And then he put everything into tiers. He's like some statistics algorithm, and like there were cutoff points for the different tiers, and like Little Samson slots in as a rarity 7, and Stadium Event slots in at a rarity 10, and everything kind of filters down. And before we used to kind of do that based on feeling, and when you put in the actual data, 90% of those feelings line up, and then that is a way, like looking at the actual data, and again, the actual data, how many copies are available on eBay, you'll find things that kind of don't fit with the perception that a game has always had. Like something like Alex DeMio's Race America is one of the games that shows up least on NES. And you probably think of that as an uncommon game. You probably don't think of it as like a top 5 NES licensed rarity.
It's true. I have another question here. I want to know if you think the box art of the game and the way it is packaged, not like in transit, but like if it has a very unique style of packaging, do you think that affects the game's value in a positive or negative way?
What is this? The box art of the game and what?
And the packaging. So I'm thinking of examples like this where it has had some effect, just to like clue you in. We talked about Abadox, right? And how the disparity between Japan and America on those values. And then something like the triangle box, you know, how that packaging has increased, like that style of packaging.
You're talking about Day of the Tentacle?
Yes.
Okay.
So the idea is, do you think in general, like these are very 2 specific examples, but in general, do you think box art or packaging affects the value of the game, like on rate? Not the condition of it. Obviously, we just talked about condition, but how does the box art specifically, or the packaging type?
I mean, yeah, like Abadox is a great example of a cool game that has like the worst box art ever. I think the packaging maybe matters more than the box art, because I think people generally care about the games more than they care about the box art. Like if a game is cool and it's like nostalgic and part of your childhood or something, like you're going to want it regardless of how stupid the box art is. I think box sizes really affect value, and go into like modern sealed stuff. Like, what is the dumbest modern sealed thing you could buy? And I don't know what the answer is, but one of the answers is the Skyrim Special Edition. This thing came in like a freaking crate because the stupid statue it comes with is so big. It's like literally as big as like a Steel Battalion box. I'm gonna look up Skyrim Collector's Edition, the big one, and see what it costs. Yeah, like what, like $200 or $300? Because like fuck it, who wants that thing in their house? There's a lot of them because it's Skyrim, but like who wants this giant thing in their house? And then Demon Souls, the original Demon Souls Collector's Edition basically comes in a thing that's a little bit bigger than 2 PS3 cases side by side. It's just the game and like an additional book with it. And that has sold sealed for multiple thousands of dollars. And I bet there's no way you could get someone to spend thousands of dollars on the Skyrim thing just because it's too big and people don't want to store it. And I think that's the problem with virtually all collector's editions, especially the ones that come with statues, is that they're too inconvenient to store in a collection.
Okay. Do you think, what do you think about Phalanx for the Super Nintendo?
I think the only reason people care about Phalanx is because of the box art. I haven't played Phalanx, to be clear.
Okay. I think it's a game that like once was shit on and then has kind of gone the other way.
Okay. I mean, is it a good game? I don't know.
It's okay. Like, yeah, I don't have a problem with Phalanx. It's the shmup and you can't really tell that from the box art at all. So.
I mean, it's got a spaceship. You can tell it on the box art. What are you talking about?
I mean, not really. It's like the prominent thing you see is an old man and a banjo.
Yeah, but there's a spaceship, Johnny.
Yeah, who knows? Like, if you can pull your eyes away from what I'm seeing. Let's see. Next question I have for you. Sorry, I'm keeping it in the same thing. Do you think, okay, obviously NES, Super Nintendo, these are earlier systems, Atari, but how much do you think that these earlier systems, like are not counting the earlier systems, these more current stuff, let's say from like 1996 on, do you think the generation of the system affects the value more now or less now than it used to? From like 96 on. I think things have kind of, my point of this question is I think things have kind of started coalescing where people have just started collecting rapidly. It used to be that 10-year window where things would be like, oh, no one's collecting this, but that started to change. So do you think generations matter as much anymore?
I have no idea, man. Collecting modern stuff is so weird now. Because, like, in some sense, if you asked me this 10 years ago, I would be like, I don't know, just collect the Nintendo consoles. And then, like, the Wii U happened. And it's like, if you want the entire Wii U set, it's, like, not even a problem. Like, you spend a year, you'll just get it. And then right after that is the Switch. And it's like, you want the Switch set? It's basically fucking impossible. There's like 2,000, 3,000 games or something. I have no idea. I think I might think of things differently than maybe most people, because in some sense, people think that Switch is one of the most interesting consoles ever because every game is on it. And I think there's definitely merit to Switch maybe will be the console with the most games ever on it, especially as we transition away from physical media. If we just completely transition away from physical media right now, Switch is the console that has the most games from the most generations. You know, when you add up all the re-releases, the remakes, the bundles, things like that. But to me, I just want to collect the most important version or the best version of every game. And that's never going to be the remake, the re-release, the bundle. So does the generation matter? Like, yes, because when you're looking at NES, SNES, PlayStation 1 games, so many of those are exclusives. Or if they're not exclusives, the port to that console is so specific. Like Doom on PS1 has a lot of specific differences to Doom on Super Nintendo. The least of which is the music. I don't think Doom, I think PS1 Doom like has really ambient music compared to the rest of the Dooms. Whereas, you know, I keep bringing up like Assassin's Creed 3 just because that's a game that's been ported to literally every game system on planet Earth. That game, like, there is no version of Assassin's Creed 3 that matters anymore. Just because it's just on everything now, is out there in the ether, and every version is so equal.
Okay. You ready for the next question? Do you feel satisfied with your answers?
Sure. I felt that was a little rambly. You got anything to add there, or just that games used to be cooler because they were older, Johnny?
No, I mean, I kind of added the bit I was going to add initially just to contextualize it, that generations seem to matter less now, that people have just started collecting everything. It used to be you could kind of wait, but now you can't wait anymore. People are just collecting anything. I do think we are coming to an end, maybe, of physical media, and that might start affecting things, but that's a question that I have queued up for in a minute, Tyler. Right. So I'm not ready to get to that one yet. Okay. Regional variants. How do you feel about them? And do you think that the US should be the defining value on most games? It's not for all, but when they are multi-region games, do you think that the US should be the dominant value? And that's a tricky question. But why do you think it is as well?
Americans have a lot of disposable income, and I think most video game collectors are American. I think, do Americans just collect more stuff in general? But, you know, even going onto the wild world of the internet, where we do interact with people from the Middle East and from Europe and some from Asia. But even though I realize we're in an English speaking bubble ourselves, and there are obviously big, like, Japanese collecting communities and all that. But America's a very rich country, and America is the source of about half of the medium. Like, half the games that matter are made in America, a few are made in Europe, and then the other half that matter are made in Japan. So I think it makes sense that the American versions are the most desirable, just based on the demographics of who is collecting. Should they be the most valuable? If you're speaking from an investment perspective, and, like, does it make sense? Like, yes, I think that if your goal is to sell Super Mario Brothers to some rich guy who's, like, casually interested in collecting stuff, but is mostly just doing it for the clout because he's got $2 million to spare, he's going to be looking for the American Super Mario Brothers, because that's going to be, you know, whatever the version he's nostalgic for, or the version he thinks is the most important. Because if you show him a Famicom game, he's not even going to know what it is. So in that sense, to me, it makes sense that America are the most valuable games in general. But personally, if a game is released in multiple places at once, I want basically the region from where the developer is from. So if it's a Japanese game, I probably want the Japanese version, and I'm tending to want that on the PlayStation. So say, like, Dark Souls is a game that came out on PlayStation and on Xbox. I want the PlayStation version of Dark Souls, because that is the Japanese game console from the Japanese developer. So if you ask me, the best version of Dark Souls would be the Japanese PS3 version, as opposed to Halo 3, or that's not multi-platform, but, you know, Halo, something like Halo, I would want on the Xbox, and I'd want the American version because that feels like the realist version of Halo to me. And Halo in Japan, like, that has no value to me. That's like a curiosity. Like, I would never buy a sealed Japanese Halo or anything like that, thinking it has any real interest as anything other than a novelty.
Okay.
Just okay? Do you agree? Do you...
This isn't really about whether I agree. I wanted Tyler's perspective. I'm trying to limit my input here. And
I don't think that's how podcasts work, though. I mean, that's how an interview would work. But Johnny, we're on the show every week.
I know, but I'm kind of interviewing you. This is Tyler's take. This is a Tyler talk. So I'm trying to keep it towards you.
All right.
I mean, I have my thoughts and opinion, and like I said, you can ask me to come back. I think you're mostly on track with how I feel where value should necessarily be assigned. I also sometimes think it's hard to assign, you know, when you say, oh, well, if it came from a Japanese developer, then maybe it should be, like, what if it was developed in the US though, by Japanese people. Like that's where it gets a little tricky to me. Like why does the soil matter so much in that case?
I mean, the soil is where it was developed. I mean, these days, there's worldwide development teams, like whatever.
Yes.
But someone has their name prominently featured on the box, and that company, that development team, was predominantly on one country's soil. And the reason we have different releases of video games is because America gets like their little version with the ESRB, and Japan gets their version with Japanese text and the 0 rating. So the soil does matter in terms of this, I think.
I'm saying for me, you're asking my perspective. I don't think it should matter as much. If you told me, well, it came out here first, it was a first day release here, I'm more inclined to look at that. Just saying it was developed there or that the team was there, especially now as we get into more modern games, I think that matters a lot less to me because that all of a sudden discounts most old Nintendo games as being like, well, these are all Japanese things that Americans just harvested, is how that makes it sound.
Yep, it's true.
I mean, that's not true. Like, if you develop video games for a broader audience, like, who are you really developing games for? If Americans buy 80% of the games compared to Japan, then who are you making the games for, really?
But a lot of these, I mean, I don't know how development works these days. But if you're talking about a Famicom game, these games were developed for the Famicom and then localized with English text to America. So, I mean, in that sense, it's pretty clear that the Famicom versions came first. And yes, this is like a meme, like, oh, Famicom came first. Why isn't it any valuable? But I think that you can, if you have there's kind of an I know it when I see it to the vast majority of games on whether this counts as a Japanese or an American game. Yes,
I think so. But I'm saying at some point it does shift though, right? Because and this is just a thing I've considered. Like if this is the consumer country and then, so it's like, okay, well, we only make these games for Japan and they don't consume as much, but we need to sell them to America to make them happy. Like, and then if it becomes Americans have become accustomed to the Japanese style of game and that's what they want, right? Then it's not really being made for the Japanese anymore. It's being made for people who just enjoy video games. You know?
I get what you're saying, but like no matter how much Americans like Devil May Cry, like it's still the most Japanese game ever, even if they are specifically making it for American tastes of Japanese crazy action games. It's still a Japanese game.
I mean, maybe then you have to go into, well, the reason I don't like that is because how many you start to really boil it down to, well, the soil it was made on was Japan. It's like, okay, well, was the whole Japanese team, was it a completely Japanese team? Who had inputs into it? Did Sony of America have input into it? Or is it only Sony of Japan? How is this ratioed? Who did the work? Is this a global team? What do those diversity counts start to look like before it just seems a weird way to start tallying things up. And that's where I get a little like, that seems weird.
This is why Nintendo, like NES and Atari games are so cool, because it's usually like one guy, or like you get into NES and it's like a smallish team. And like you could really wrap your head around who made the game. Whereas Death Stranding 2 by Hideo Kojima, yes, that game is going to be... Is that game out? I don't even know.
Don't know.
That game is a weird game in large part because Hideo Kojima is a weird guy, but Hideo Kojima is not sitting there banging out code and moving the models and doing the voiceovers for the cutscenes. Like, how much is Hideo Kojima truly the one who's doing the nuts and bolts making of the video game? You know, it's mostly this group of 6,000 other people, but we say it's a game by Hideo Kojima and we give him all the credit. And if we were going to get one single person to sign our collector's edition of Death Stranding 2, it would be Hideo Kojima. And that's, I feel like, what we do a lot when we give all the credit of a game to a developer. You know, like even going to like The Last of Us 2, another like ridiculous game, just like the budget out the ass, just like they spent too much money on it. even just like Naughty Dog, like, you know, they outsourced so much of that game to different parts of the world. It's like not even just Naughty Dog made that game.
No. Again, and that it's kind of like movies in that way now. Like, we always credit the director, but really the team behind it is gigantic, and there's a lot of work to be done. I get what you're saying, though. All right.
So the way around this is to just stop collecting games when it took more than like a small team of people to make them in like in the span of like 6 months. That's when that was really the golden age of games. When you could crank out an Atari cartridge in 3 months, that's real gaming right there.
Yeah. When Atari was American and Nintendo was Japanese, and we knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just
AtariAge.com, Johnny, the largest video game forum on the internet.
That's not true. It's Facebook.
Depends on your definition of forum.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you only mean a place where there's some threads that only old white guys go to talk, then it's still definitely Facebook.
AtariAge.com, sign up. It's a cool website full of really cool people.
Is it?
It's a cool website. It's cool that it's still around.
A relic of the past. We enjoy it. Okay. How big a risk do you think counterfeit games are right now?
I'm going to moderate. I think if you're just buying regular stuff, I think it's probably low. I mean, obviously you got to keep your eye out when you're buying something that's like very heavily counterfeited, like literally every Game Boy Advance game is, probably every Nintendo DS game, every Pokemon game, things like that. I do remember, man, it was probably 5 years ago or so, someone started putting up decent looking Sega CD manual reproductions on eBay. Like, they have like a snatcher for like $40, things like that. And that was a real impetus for me to complete my collection as soon as possible, so I don't have to deal with any of that. Because a lot of that counterfeit stuff, like a counterfeit Sega CD manual, like if you put it side by side with a real manual, like you'll be able to tell the difference. But if you are an obsessive collector, if you're buying 10 games a week, like, you're not buying a game and then scrutinizing every component to determine its authenticity, especially A and Bing it against a real thing, with every single game you buy. Like, if I bought, a $300 NES game, like, yes, I'm going to look at the label, I'm going to open up the PCB, look at it, make sure it's real. But, if I'm buying a $70 Sega CD game, I think, at least with how diligent I've been in the past, someone would have been able to slip a repro manual by me, because I probably wouldn't have even looked at the manual. I would have looked at the front of the game. I'm like, oh, cool, it's the game. I would have opened the case and I'd be like, there it is. There's the game. Maybe I would pick up the disc to see if it's in decent condition. But in the past, at least, I've not super scrutinized everything I bought. And now I think on AliExpress, there was this recent hubbub that there's a bunch of PlayStation 1 bootlegs, and Game Rave, PlayStation Library on YouTube.com did a video on how to spot these bootlegs, and they're basically not that good, especially if you A/B them with a real one. You'll definitely be able to tell. But this kind of stuff will slip past a lot of people who aren't paying super close attention. Because you know what? Yeah, if I buy an expensive PlayStation game, maybe I'll take a look at it. Maybe I'll try to determine the authenticity. If you slip like 3 fake manuals into a lot of 15 PS1 games, and I get those all in one box, like, what are the chances I'm going to identify those 3 fake manuals? Probably lowish. And so I don't think the concern is people making completely fake games, because, faking everything and having it be convincing is hard, but having a 75% real game and then faking an insert or faking a manual and slipping that past someone is a lot easier. So I am a little bit scared of that stuff.
Okay. I'm a little bit afraid of it too. Now that we have the fear of counterfeits boiled into our brains, Tyler, let's talk about what are the best places to find games. Where am I buying them?
Johnny, there's this website where you can buy things called ebay.com. And
that's the best.
Interestingly, this is not Craigslist. It's not Facebook. It's not Mercari, although Mercari can be okay too because people don't really check it as much. You type in the exact game you want, and it will be there because for 97% of video games that you would actually want, if you want it, it's on eBay.com. And the only reason I'm saying this facetiously is because I think generally going on Facebook and trying to hunt deals it's a way to collect, but it's probably not the way to get the exact thing you're looking for. And I think you will always be happier with the exact games you're looking for than, the cheap GameCube lot you got on Facebook, which, like, yes, it's cool that you got a bunch of cool games, but it's not the stuff that was at the top of your want list. I am all about making an exact, specific, ordered want list and starting from the top down. Get the thing you want the most right now. And if you can't afford it, just save up your hobby budget until you can afford the thing at the top of your want list and then move on to the next one rather than just opportunistically buying everything that's available because it's a decent deal. Or because Limited Run Games put out another fucking Castlevania game. You people know who you are. You people are like, Limited Run Games is so stupid. Oh, they put out another Castlevania thing. Well, I gotta buy that one.
I feel attacked.
Yeah. I think there are multiple people in our Discord who do that exact same thing.
Absolutely. The biggest critic and also the biggest cringe buyer of Castlevanias. All right, Tyler, that was leading right into my next question. Is it better to buy lots or to buy games individually? Well, I'm just starting. I don't have much. I only have a few that I just bought to play, but now I want to collect. Should I buy lots? What am I doing?
Johnny, I'm a realistic person. If you are starting a new hobby, like, especially one with like, a trillion possible things to collect, like, yes, buy lots, go crazy. Go just on eBay, look up NES and buy that lot of 75 different NES games and hook up a real NES and go play those games and have that same, like, honeymoon experience with collecting video games. Like, no one who starts a hobby, like, if I started to collect Pokemon cards tomorrow, I probably wouldn't start by, like, looking over the 25-year history of the trading card game and determine, like, what is the number one card that I actually want right now, and I'm only going to buy that. Maybe I would have the discipline for that. Most likely, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy, like, 3 booster boxes and crack them, because that's the fun thing to do. So, like, do whatever. Like, you got to experience a bunch of different things when you're starting a hobby to, like, learn what you like. So, but once you're, like, established in the hobby and you know what you like, I think it makes more sense to buy games individually, even though I 100% recognize it is more expensive to do so. And like this is coming from my perspective where I basically don't sell games. If you are willing to put up with the extra effort, basically a second job of buying a lot and then selling that 80% of the lot that you don't want, and then keeping the whatever's left over for free, like, that's a totally fine way to, collect anything, basically. My hobby is consumerism. It is buying the shit I want. And when I have to buy lots and then sell them, it feels more like a job, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
But when I was in high school, I did that shit literally all day.
If you have the wherewithal to do it and you have the gumption, then great. You should be doing it, and making the hobby pay for itself is wonderful. If you're one of those people who can do that, more power to you. If you're not, then you should really follow Tyler's advice here.
I don't know. Someone posts a lot of good stuff they get on Facebook and Discord. Is it Zach?
Yeah, Zach does some of that.
Someone's always buying, like, good lots.
And is it Strange as well? Does Strange do it too?
Maybe. But yeah, I just don't have the motivation anymore to, like, comb through social media. Because, like, in my mind, like, the days of going on Craigslist, going to garage sales, going on Facebook wasn't really a thing. And, like, finding that cool lot of, like, complete in-box NES games at a super good price, like, in my mind, that doesn't happen anymore. But, I see the people who do go out and grind Facebook and Craigslist, and they do, like, sometimes they come back with some pretty decent stuff. So I guess, like, there still is stuff out there. I just don't have the motivation to be the guy looking for it. And then when I find it, to, like, make sure I'm the first person who gets the sale on, like, the underpriced lot of GameCube games or N64 games or whatever.
And it is Zach. I double checked. Yeah, Zach's someone who's
Zach,
made a
we're
couple
calling
of
you
those
out
posts. No,
for
it's great.
getting all the good deals on Facebook, I guess.
Yeah. I'm glad someone's getting them because it's not me. Next question following this up and just related to this. Do good deals still exist?
Yeah. I think good deals exist at MSRP on eBay. Buy it now. I think
Okay.
there's a lot of interesting video games, and you know what the cool thing about video games is it's mass media, and the vast majority of them they printed like for games you care about, they printed like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of them. Johnny, there are some good deals. You can get a Magic of Scheherazade, a Zelda-like game that's a hidden gem that your friends haven't played, and it costs $60, which accounting for inflation, that's probably like a third the real cost of what it cost new in 1990 or whenever that game came out. So yeah, hell yeah, these games are good deals. That's like asking if there's good deals on DVDs when the average DVD is what, like $3? That's kind of how I feel about video games. Because the average new video game is, 20 to $50. And what's the average collectible 40-year-old video game? It's like, I don't know, 20 to $50, probably a little bit more for something nice. But getting like a nice, interesting, cool video game. Like if you really appreciate an individual video game and you're not just like bulking up, checking off checklists and things like that, it's usually about the price of buying just a new video game. And that's crazy to me. That's awesome. I'd rather have the complete in box NES Magic of Scheherazade than I would rather than the Mailman game. What's the Mailman game? Death Stranding 2. To me personally. But
Well, Death Stranding 2 doesn't come out till 2025.
yeah. Yeah, I think games are great deals, Johnny. We've had multiple episodes. We had like a thing like 10 tens for $10. It was just like video games that were like all-time greatest games ever, and you can get them complete in box for $10. That was the whole episode. Because how many games are like that? How much could a Metal Gear Solid 3 cost? Just find the nicest, mintest, every insert copy of Metal Gear Solid 3, get a little acrylic stand for it, and put Metal Gear Solid 3 on your shelf. That game costs nothing, and it's a masterpiece. You don't have to appreciate stupid shit like stadium events and Little Samson. Little Samson's a good game. But yeah, there's plenty of some of the best games of all times that just don't cost a lot of money, and you could still appreciate them as collectibles.
Last of Us. Orange Box. Let's do it.
The Last of Us.
Just such good games. Portal 2. Let's go.
Portal 2. Right. You can probably get Portal 2 sealed for like $30 on PC.
Follow-up question. Do you think our collective inability to spell Scheherazade has hurt the value of this game?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, I do too.
That's kind of funny to think about. Yeah, I wonder, like, do people like put that off until the end because like it's just not something they search for? I don't know. Probably not.
I often think about, and you can tell me if you think about this as well and your feelings on it. When games have bad names and weird titles, do you think it affects the value? Unless people like really hone in and identify it as cool, but if you make it too weird or too hard to spell, I think it can kind of hurt the value of a game as a collectible. Maybe not as something, and maybe even as something people go to play. You're just like, I don't know about this game, or the title tells you absolutely nothing. You're just like, I don't, no, thank you.
The thing is that like anime people are super into all of their fandoms. So like anime RPGs usually hold their value pretty well.
Yeah.
Let me give you a good example of that, Johnny. It's Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner 2 Raidu Kazuhona versus King Abaddon. Yeah, that game's like $100 now.
Yeah. Well, what about Unidentified Midsummer R91?
Oh yeah, that's that's a classic.
Yeah, you're like some of the Japanese RPG titles are becoming a meme to me. They're just like word salad. Okay, guys.
Someone just what did they played like Metaphor or something? What was it?
I don't know.
Yeah, someone on Discord played Metaphor Refantasio. And they were like, man, that game's great. One of the best games of the year. And I asked him, hey, now that you've beaten this entire game, can you explain to me what a Metaphor ReFantazio is? And he's like, nope.
Perfect. Yeah. Again, these titles are getting stupid.
Johnny, I've played multiple Shin Megami Tensei games. I don't know what a Shin Megami Tensei is.
Me either. Okay. Moving on. Tyler, do you think it's important that I should recognize when a game has an interesting pre-order bonus? And should I try to collect games that have good pre-order bonuses because it will enhance the value of my game later?
Because it will enhance the value of your game later. Well, Johnny, if you have this mindset, I feel like this is the wrong mindset to have, because the vast majority of modern games that you will pre-order and buy for $60 will lose value over time, regardless of whether you have the pre-order bonus or not. Right? Like, games are not investments. Games in general are become old, outdated media, and then there's just a bunch of copies sitting around that no one needs anymore.
Well, I'm going to challenge this as an answer. Ooh. Not here, but in another episode, because I want to do a pre-order episode where we look into the value of games that had kind of weird or interesting pre-orders, and if that actually wound up mattering.
Okay. So here's what I think. I think there are some games that have, it's hard to call these iconic. Like, some games have like an obvious single pre-order thing that's like actually cool. And this is a bad example, but the first thing that comes to mind is 50 Cent on Xbox has Xbox and PS2. The pre-order was a vest that went over the box of the game. It was a bulletproof vest because the game was 50 Cent bulletproof. And that is so cool. I love that pre-order bonus, and that genuinely goes for some money. But then when you look into Pokemon pre-order bonuses in Japan, and every convenience store in Japan had its own pre-order bonus for the Pokemon games. And some of these games have like a dozen different pre-order bonuses, and no one really cares enough to keep it all straight, and none of them really stand out individually. And in that case, where it's kind of this wishy-washy thing, where like, oh, GameStop had one and Best Buy had one, and there are all these different things, I feel like that means that none of them really matter individually. Most people don't care enough to keep it straight. And so I think people just won't care in terms of value. But if you can prove me wrong, I'm happy to be proven wrong on that.
I'm just going to look at it. The one I always think about is for the GameCube, where you pre-ordered Wind Waker and you got the Ocarina Master Quest bonus disc.
Okay, yeah, like we're getting into like one of the best pre-order bonuses of all time, basically.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not. That's why I'm not saying this is like. I don't think all of them are like this, but I want to look at a few and see if this is the pinnacle. What do the rest look like? On average, what do these things hold out or not? That's the thrust of that episode.
See, I feel like a lot of the times these days it's like, oh, you get access to the game 3 days early, and we give you the cosmetics from Mass Effect 1.
You get some in-game currency. Aren't you happy?
Hold on, I'm looking at what the Starfield pre-order bonuses were. It's nothing. It's a skin pack and some in-game items. Like, do they even give you physical pre-order bonuses anymore? Am I crazy?
No, some games will still do it. Like, look at Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door remake. If you bought it, well, I guess it's not really a pre-order. It's just like an order bonus from... No. If you pre-ordered from GameStop in Canada, you got the sleeve with some Canadian text on it, which was the same as
yes.
if you bought it from the Nintendo store.
Yep.
Except
people love that sleeve.
Little bit. Yeah, they want that sleeve, but they don't want the Canadian text. The one without the Canadian text, hundreds of dollars more than the one with the Canadian text on it. And literally, it's not like huge Canadian text. It's just like around the ESRB. Hilarious.
So I don't care. My vibe that I get is that the majority of people don't genuinely care about pre-order bonuses. If they have like a game that they like, or there's something they're specifically interested in, like, yeah, it's cool. Like, hey, you got your cool thing. I do think it is probably an underappreciated and undervalued aspect of game collecting, because basically the majority of pre-order bonuses are like throwaway garbage like, yes, you got like the cool collectible thing, but the cool collectible thing is something they literally have to give you for free. So it's like this 79-cent piece of crap from AliExpress, or it's like some art cards, or like, you know, a little baggie or something. So like people don't think to put those on eBay very often. And so when you do find some of that stuff on eBay, a lot of it's really cheap. I think, what was it? The Pokemon Gold and Silver pre-order bonus. It came with like a CD, like a PC CD-ROM, and I think it was sealed on eBay. There were like multiple of them for like 10 or 15 bucks. And I just remember thinking, this is the first Pokemon pre-order bonus ever. I don't, who would ever save this, let alone put it on eBay for 10 bucks? So I just bought one. So I think if you want to be like a serious modern collector, I think like having all the pre-order bonuses for like some set or something, I think that's a cool way to be a completionist in a way that the vast majority of people will not be.
I can't wait to do this pre-order episode one because there's a lot of interesting things. And I think the heyday of pre-orders was around GameCube time frame. So it's like that wheel of collectors that are in the thick of it right now.
I'm sorry to tell you that the GameStop art cards from Pokemon Legends Arceus don't have a whole lot of value. The pre-order bonus.
Well,
cards.
What about Pokemon Coliseum on the GameCube?
You see, you can't. GameCube's like cheating. People are nuts for GameCube. People feel about GameCube how I feel about NES, and I didn't even grow up with the NES. Well, I kind of did, but no, maybe it's not a fair comparison. Johnny, anyway, what else is going on?
All right. Okay, well, let's move us beyond pre-orders. Okay, I want to talk about condition and display real quick and see if you have any tips for me. What is the best way to maintain the good condition that my games are in right now, or I hope they will be in if they're not mailed in bubble mailers?
Johnny, I have a fascinating story to bring up for this. So the best way to maintain condition, literally every game you get, at least ones that have a cardboard box, put it in a box protector. They will cost an extra $1 per game. So when you have 600 games and you need to buy for all of them, yes, it's going to cost you $500, probably in bulk. You'll get a little discount to put all your games in box protectors. But if you spread that out over a cost of $1 per game, it makes so much sense. Just get box protectors on literally everything. It also keeps the dust out. Just do it. But Johnny, someone recently pointed out to us, videogameboxprotectors.com no longer stocks Atari 2600 box protectors.
Oh, no.
So as far as I know, the biggest two places to get box protectors will be videogameboxprotectors.com, and what I think is the biggest is retroprotection.com, which has a wider selection of stuff. So how interesting is it that you have a business that its only purpose is basically to make PET plastic protectors for cardboard boxes? There's a very limited number of systems that even need this to begin with. We're talking like the 70s to the mid 90s, maybe the 2000s if you include GBA. And you're just, so few people need Atari 2600 box protectors that you don't even make them. That's like a major console. That's, to most people, that's like the entire generation of those vintage consoles. It's basically, they just boil it down to Atari, and it's not even worth making Atari box protectors anymore. Johnny, is Atari 2600 dead? That's my question to you.
I don't think so, because I feel like it's gotten more attention than it ever has since I've been collecting. Like when I first started collecting 2004, 2005, there was like the Atari guys, and most people ignored them, but they weren't really NES guys, and they just kind of all faded away. And then all of a sudden, graded games came out, and then people were like, Atari, look, I've been holding this for 100 years. And they like pulled these things out of their satchels because they're old men and they have satchels. And yeah, I think Atari is having a resurgence, if anything.
I'm going to say I mostly disagree. I think that maybe it seems more prominent in the graded world just because there's literally so many sealed Atari games kind of known for having old stock left over. And I'm not saying they're all common, but there is a core group of common Atari games that do keep showing up in the graded market.
I'm just saying there was none of that though in the collecting market.
So yeah, sealed and whatever, like, yeah, it was kind of a meme. Atari was worthless. All these same distributors who had the games now were selling them for like $10 a piece less in the 2000s. But I will say, I was hanging out on Game TZ and Digit Press most of the time. And like, if you were just a regular guy, average game collector, just buying whatever, I would say most of those people had Atari games. Like, they were buying Sega Genesis and Saturn and NES and Super Nintendo, and they probably also had Atari games because they were hitting the flea markets and buying whatever cool games came up. And what do flea markets have? They have NES games and they have Atari games. And so a lot of people just had Atari games. It was very normal to look at someone's collection and see like, oh, there's my 17 complete in box Atari 2600 games. Whereas I would never look at a collection of a more modern game collector and see Atari games at all. Like, I think some people probably go back to NES and get some good stuff, but I don't think the average I just collect everything collector, they like usually just don't even go back to Atari.
Having Atari games and Atari games having any kind of demand or want are not the same thing.
I mean, is the demand really that great? Almost everything I bid on in the Atari market, I'm like the underbidder if I don't win it. It's like one other guy who's bidding against me.
Yeah, I think there's more demand than there's ever been. Not ever, but like at least in the last 10, 15 years. I think before it was much like the way I got Sega games that, they were out of the Nintendo games, but they were there. So I just bought what was available because it was cheap. So I think especially back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's how people collected. And you just picked up Atari games because you're like, oh, okay, got some Atari games because they were there. I don't think it was like out of a extreme want for Atari games.
That's
and now
true.
You have people.
So I think people got them because they were there, but because they were there, people knew about Atari games. Like, it wasn't just like you bought random Atari games and threw them on your shelf. Like, I knew even back then, like, I'm looking for Chase the Chuck Wagon. I'm looking for Quad Run. I'm looking for like the R9s, the R10s, because I was so invested in the entirety of video game collecting. Like, I learned which Atari games were rare because so many people had interesting games in their collection. So I needed to know, which Atari games will make me look cool on a forum to all these people who are twice my age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're out there trying to get yourself groomed by older men, but these are your answers. I'm happy to accept them. I don't think I agree exactly with you, but
Johnny says Atari is back, baby. We're all going to be collecting Atari. Tyler was right. Speculate on complete in box adventure.
Yeah, I just think there's more demand, like noticeable demand, and maybe less titles, but I think there's more noticeable demand for Atari than there's been in a long time. That's my point.
All right. I mean, there's more noticeable demand for almost everything. So
that's also
objectively
a little bit true. Okay. All right. What's the best way to display my collection, Tyler?
Do you want the do as I say or the realistic answer?
No. What? No. If you were optimized, how do you think the best way to do it?
Oh, okay. So you go down to Lowe's and you get their small cardboard boxes. You put all your games up in there and you make just like a giant wall. Just like stack those Lowe's boxes up in like your garage. So hopefully you'll never see them. And then every time you buy some more games, you get a new box from Lowe's, and then you shove that box in your garage.
Okay.
Or you could buy an IKEA Billy bookcase, Johnny, and you can keep your collection to only what fits on that one IKEA Billy bookcase.
A Billy bookcase challenge happening in 2025. Yes.
Yep. We're both selling all of our collection that doesn't fit onto a single Billy. That's going to be the challenge.
No, we're just going to display. We're just going to drag a Billy into the middle of our rooms and fill it up.
I have a Billy in the middle of my room, but it's full. This is my only collection now?
No, we are going to say if we had to pare our collection down, we can only take what fits on this shelf.
No way. I'm not moving all of my games around just for that one challenge.
Buy a new Billy bookcase, and then you can, that way when you're done, you can just go put them back on that shelf.
You see, but I do genuinely have like the random boxes of shit, and there might be like, if I was genuinely doing that, like going back to Metal Gear Solid 3, if it had one Billy, like Metal Gear Solid 3 probably makes it onto that Billy, but like right now Metal Gear Solid 3 is sitting in my like PS2 bulk bins. And so like every single game like that I'd have to find and throw onto this stupid shelf.
People really want us to do this Billy challenge.
Is and people you telling yourself?
No, I don't want to do that. God, do you know what a pain in the ass that would be for me?
And so the
yes,
thing
you
is,
do, because you have the same.
I had a friend who did this literally with an IKEA Billy, I think. He might have expanded to 2 Billies at some point. But I do think this is a genuinely great way to collect and like guarantee that you're not going to overbuy or like blow your budget or piss your wife off, is to just, you have one bookcase, and when it fills up, you have to sell stuff before you can throw more stuff on it. I think both of us are too far gone to use a system like this because we like owning a lot of stuff.
Leave us.
But if I did this, I would also start optimizing for space, and I start thinking like, whew, those N64 boxes are pretty good. Like F-Zero X is one of my favorite games, but I could get like 3 jewel cases for one F-Zero X, and there's a lot of good games on PS1. I feel like I would start collecting smaller games just by nature.
Yeah. Vita games suddenly at a premium.
Nope. There's a perfect video game packaging, and it is a single CD jewel case from 1997.
No, DS case.
That one's pretty good too, yes.
Yeah. All right. So we think having proper shelving for your games is the best way to display it. Yeah.
What other way is there to display it?
Well, you described another way people keep their collections, not displayed, but how they keep them. Some people keep them in stacks. We know this too.
I mean, I've got my collection all over the place. Like, I have a lot of stuff displayed, but I have a lot of stuff in boxes. And like at some point I told myself like, man, I got to reorganize this stuff and really get that box stuff on display. And I told that to myself for like 20 years. So, yeah, the stuff that goes into the boxes, you just have to admit to yourself that it's going to stay in those boxes until you die or you're ready to sell it. And like, you could still maybe get the joy of owning it and like seeing like, yeah, I've got those boxes checked on my spreadsheet. But yeah, if a game in my game room goes into, I use really useful boxes, but if it goes into a really useful box and gets shoved in the corner, I am admitting to myself, those games are going there to die. Sorry, my entire Wii collection, the entirety of which is shoved in really useful boxes under a pinball machine. I have 0 Wii games on display anywhere. Fuck the Nintendo Wii.
So I like, if you're going to do the box thing, I like inventorying your boxes, inventory what's in them, label the box, put that in a spreadsheet. That way you know where your stuff is. And then when you want it, you know where you can go get it. And then you also have the double joy of having a spreadsheet and looking at your spreadsheet.
That is kind of a long-term goal of making that kind of inventory system. And similar to the goal of organizing everything and putting the best stuff on display, it just seems like something I will never get around to. I just don't have them. There is always so much stuff I could be doing to interact with or organize or clean or do all this like stuff with my collection, cataloging it or deciding like, you know, what I need to upgrade, whatever I need to do with my collection, that going through boxes of like bulk PS2 and Wii games and cataloging each individual one exactly where it is. And once I do that, having the discipline to, if any of that changes, making sure to update it in the spreadsheet so I don't have to do it all over again. I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
Okay.
Because I could do it once. I'll do it once, and then I'll be like, I really want to play Zack and Wiki or something. And then if that game suddenly is sitting like on top of my Wii for 2 years because I didn't put it back in the box, then all of a sudden Zack and Wiki's location in my inventory is wrong. And if all of a sudden that game just makes it back onto a random bookcase and it doesn't make it into its correct bin, then my system is ruined forever.
Okay. Follow up to this. What is the best way to keep track of my collection, Tyler? This is all do as I say, not as I do.
Google Sheets. I think.
Google Sheets?
Yes. I think it's not an app. So I am I'm a huge proponent of permanent data, and any app, any iOS or Android app, it just literally will not be around forever. So I just will not trust my data to any app. So you want the most portable thing. The most portable thing is a text document or a spreadsheet. So just use Google Sheets. I do not use Google services except to interact with you on our one document. But I would still say a normal person is not a nutcase like me, and they should just use Google Sheets. And it's perfect because, all these apps, they'll have like all these different fields for games, or like they'll come with like a pre-built-in database, and like you might not agree with their list, or they might be missing this variant, or they might be missing this game. And rather than try to edit their list to be what you need it to be, like when you make your own spreadsheet, it is exactly what you need it to be. So if you don't care about inserts or boxes and you just want to check off a game, you just have the title of the game and a checkbox, and that's it. Or you could put 15 different fields for the games and list the condition of each of your inserts. It's whatever you want it to be. It's perfect.
So I agree. I think Collectors is also pretty good because while it's a database, it's you inputting your stuff, not clicking little boxes mostly. Like, you're not like, oh, like Game Eye, where you're just like, I have these games, let me check, and then like figuring out, and it's fully customizable. And I agree with you on apps. They're going to go away. Something's going to fail. I do like that you can export these out to a CSV and then just paste it into your Google Sheet if you needed to. And you can get the fields pretty dialed and add locations. So I like them both.
I'm a big fan of Collectors. So I did look at basically all the different software I could use to organize my collection that isn't a plain spreadsheet. If I was going to use a database program, I think Collectors is by far the best. Not using their game database at all, even starting from scratch, even turning off all the fields I don't care about. It is just the easiest thing to organize my games by consoles and keep track of variants. Like, it does all the things a collector would want to do. I do also like that you can buy it one time and you get access to that version forever. And then you have the option to upgrade again in the future. So I've got like Collectors like 5.0 or something. It's like literally like 15 years out of date. But I could still go to their website and download that out of date version, and it's mine forever. And then I could probably pay like $30 to upgrade to the latest version. I will say a problem with Collectors is they really push their online service, because that's obviously an ongoing subscription. I can't even find on their website where they're selling the desktop app. Do they sell it anymore?
I think they may be deprecating that completely.
Yeah. So, like, if we're talking about if it's just the cloud, then like fuck Collectors. Like, the whole point of not using an app is to not lock you into a subscription or keep your data hostage in someone else's app. So if you're going to do that, like, just start with a spreadsheet to begin with and don't worry about it. Like, yes, there's a good chance Collectors will be here for a while if they're getting $30 a year from each of their users. But if one day you have this super fine-tuned database in Collectors and you have to export it, it's going to be a hassle. No matter, like, every app has like the export to CSV. There is no such thing as like exporting database from one thing and just loading it up as a spreadsheet and everything is exactly how you want it. So, like, yes, you can export some format of that, but like you're going to have to fuck with it a million hours to get it exactly how you want in a spreadsheet.
Collectors does a pretty good job. If you like, I also don't try to get like super fancy with it. I'm like, here's the 10 fields I need. They just need to come out in this order. And it does a pretty fair job on that. So,
right, so it doesn't Tyler. Look like, so actually Collectors does not sell web-based software. Yeah, no, Collectors doesn't sell the desktop software anymore.
That's interesting. I wonder if you can still find it through other channels. Okay.
Don't.
And that's go ahead.
Don't if you have to like pirate proprietary software to like keep using it, that is like a fragile solution. So the problem is, Johnny, for us, like we have thousands and thousands and thousands of video games, and like we have to keep track of like the tiniest stupid minutia, like variants, inserts, condition, all this stuff. I want to be able to know that whatever I spend, all it's cataloging this stuff takes so much time. So I want to know that all this time that I'm putting into cataloging all this little nitpicky stupid bullshit, that in 20 years that whatever computer I have is still going to be able to look at it. And I think that is an important thing to consider when you're just looking at like the trendiest new game collecting app that's made by like a college kid. No offense, probably the biggest, coolest, flashiest app there is right now. Is it going to be around in 20 years?
I mean, I think a lot of these apps prey on new collectors completely. And I would say if you're new, just open a spreadsheet and then figure out what fields you need to take care of. And I know that's kind of hard, but it's like, just keep track of all the components it has, the general condition. If you want some advanced stuff, put where you bought it, what you think the value is, or just like not even that, because you can kind of just look that up. And that's going to be static info that's constantly going to be shifting. More importantly, put what you paid for it. That way, when you do want to know on an individual game, you can go look and see what happened.
Also, I just want to say, like some of the most serious high-end people with games worth tens of thousands of dollars, collectors we know use like Collectors and GameEye. So like, we're not saying like, oh, you suck if you're not using a spreadsheet. Like, we know some very serious people who use Collectors, like the web-based one. It's not like the end of the world if you've like.
I use all three of them.
It's an incredible, like Collectors is incredible software. I really like everything about it. I'm just like a software licensing nerd, so yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah, like I said, I have the phone version, the web version, and my desktop, and they all interact with each other, which is nice. Okay, Tyler, a couple more. I got like 3 more questions for you. How do we feel about video game ephemera? Should we collect that? Should we add it to our collections? Or does that have any value? Does it have a place in collecting? What are we doing with this?
Well, Johnny, this is such a personal question. I don't know. I hate that stuff because you know what? The things that are most, I guess, precious to me in game collecting, the things that prevent me from getting what I want is not having enough space and not having enough money. And ephemera, it doesn't take things off my want list because it's by definition not a game, and it takes money. So it's like the opposite of what I need to be collecting.
It takes space and money, the two things you have the least of.
I don't even like limited run games because they come with like stupid bullshit in the box I got to keep track of. Sometimes these newer releases, they come with stupid bullshit outside of the box I got to keep track of. Homebrew does this all the time. Like NES Homebrew, I'll buy NES Homebrew, and it comes in the NES size box because like it's illegal to make an NES Homebrew that has a bigger box than normal, which is a good idea. I like that we're keeping our shelves standardized, but then it comes with this other fucking bullshit. I got, there was an Atari game, Circus Convoy. It comes with the Atari-sized box, which is great. I could put that on my shelf. And then it came with a toy truck and a fucking hat. What am I supposed to do with a toy truck and a hat? I have nowhere to put it. It doesn't fit on my shelf, but I just got to keep track of these items in the general vicinity of my game box forever now? What are we doing? If it doesn't fit in the box, just don't ship it to me. Don't make it makes my collection worse. I can't throw them out because it's part of the set. When you bought it new, it came with this toy truck and this hat. So if I lose it, it's incomplete, but I have nowhere to fucking put them.
Yes, Tyler, 100% everything you just said. My sentiments exactly. You know how much I hate that. Good answer.
Yeah, man. It's like collector's editions are made by people who specifically don't collect things. And you know what collectors love? Collectors love a big box. Like we're pretty opinionated. We think boxes get too big. If you just made a bigger box, even if it costs more money, people would love if you put a bunch of shit in that box. But when the shit is outside the box, we got nothing to do with it. Just make the bigger box. You throw that toy truck in a box, that's stupid, but people will be like, oh, look at how packed this game is. It comes with a toy truck in the box. Because that's what collector brains do.
Yeah. So collectors also love uniformity. So if you just made if it was the same height and then the same depth, but you just made it wider to fit your collector stuff in, A+.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it. The way to do it is to, one, not include stupid shit. But if the shit is so good that you just have to include it, maybe it's a bonus DVD or something. Yeah, just make it a wider box, same height.
Yep.
And you know what? None of this, like, it's the same height, but, like, we made it, like, 4 millimeters taller. No, that still ruins it. Same height.
No, because they're trying to put the case of the game into the box.
Yeah.
And then that box,
still fucks everything up.
Yep. Nope, don't do it.
But that is still better. That is better than the alternative of a completely wrong box size. Like, if you're going to do it, fine, but still would much prefer it's the exact same height as everything else.
Yeah. I would rather the game is just now in a cardboard box than the standard case.
Oh, you know what console did this perfectly, Johnny? The best console ever made, the PlayStation 1.
Oh. Are you sure about that?
Got the single disc jewel cases, the double disc jewel cases, then you got a few like little cardboard things like Lunar.
Oh, like Lunar and like the Grinch
and they're all just like big old jewel cases.
All the gun games.
Perfect.
Yeah, all the gun games.
All right, well, we don't talk about
it. It's pretty good. Also, the collector's edition packs, like the Disney pack and stuff. It's just a little slipcase outside. It makes it a little bigger.
Yeah.
Anyways, Tyler, I agree with you. But as far as ephemera and stuff, if you like it, great, collect it. That's on you. Tyler and I's stance is never. We aren't those people because, as Tyler very succinctly put it, those things take up space and money, and those are the things that we are most precious about.
It's true.
All right, Tyler.
Johnny, you're going to have to come up with a title and description for this episode. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. But I do like that I get to complain about modern collector's editions.
This is a Tyler talk. All right. 2 more, Tyler. Is there a community for me that I can join if I'm a new collector? Like, where do I go?
You go to the
podcast you recommend, anything like
baby.
That? Oh, which you can get to by joining our Patreon for just $4. That's that's patreon.com/collectorsquest, where you can hang out with all the best people. And I say that like it's our ad, but I truly mean that. Anyways, yes, you can join us there. Is there anywhere else though, besides what we're shilling over here?
You know what, Johnny? I think the future is small communities. We have lived through this social media boom where a lot of people, like the game is to try to get as much attention, as much likes, as much influence as you can in like the broad world of Twitter or Instagram. In the world of AI and bots and like eventually all of that major social media, I feel like is destined to be taken over by garbage. Like literally just like AI making all the posts to try to influence opinions and things like that. So I think the future is finding a group of like 20 to 50 people you like. And I don't know if you're going to start a Mastodon server or an Instagram hashtag for just you guys or something. That seems like a better way to form a community in the future. But that's really more of a Tyler thinks that the AI apocalypse is coming than a game collecting thing, Johnny. Yeah, I don't know. Do you go on Instagram and do the retro gaming hashtag and you post there and the algorithm will suck you, and like if you're posting NES games or Atari games, you'll find like the same 100 people that are doing the same thing you are, and you'll probably get to know them.
That was awfully forward of the algorithm.
Yeah, but my preference would be you get on Discord. I'm sure there's some Discord group or Facebook group that's like really niche into your interests where you'll get to like know the people, like the Big Box PC group on Facebook. I'm in a bunch of Discord servers with all these same people that I like. You got the videogamesage.com. Nintendo Age was kind of a gathering point for the Nintendo collecting hobby, and I feel like Video Game Sage isn't. I feel like I'm not saying it's like exclusively clicky. I'm saying it's more like I think of Video Game Sage as like this cool group of 50 or so people that I hang out with and talk about games. It's definitely not like a default game for people to go and talk about collecting video games.
No. Yeah, I agree. Discord, Facebook groups, those are the places. I like the idea of returning to small communities. Our Discord's a little small community, and it's really good. I like the feel of that a lot better than Instagram. Instagram is becoming too politicized and weird now. Like, the algorithm is horrible. You never know what you're going to get. I never see anybody's post that I want to see anymore. It's like they're just force feeding you what they want you to see, and it's kind of the worst.
Man, I wish we were anywhere but Discord. Man, I wish we had an IRC channel. That would be so much better.
Why? Why would that be better?
Because Discord's a big evil tech company that's feeding all of our shit
IRC,
to algorithms.
I mean, all those companies all became these companies.
Yeah, but we could just spin up our own Matrix or IRC server or something, and then just have our people. The problem is no one's going to use a fucking IRC server. Discord is super easy and super ubiquitous. I'm obviously not trying to push us to move to something different. I did get you to move to Matrix, which is fantastic because you are a person who loves me and will put up with me. The problem with the community is that you need your core group of potentially dozens of people to all meet in one place. And that leaves us with the shitty options, which are the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Discords of the world.
Yes. All right. Last question, Tyler. If I decide that it's time for me to sell part of my collection, how should I do that?
Say it ain't so.
And I said part, but maybe just a game or two. Two questions. If I decide to sell a couple games, how should I do it? And if I decide to sell out, how should I do it? And you don't need to go super deep, just in general.
I don't know. Put it all on eBay. What do you want me to say? I mean, I sell everything on eBay. I mean, I think, shopping around your group of friends, if they need anything, sure. In most cases, I don't have people looking for stuff I'm trying to sell because I'm usually trying to get rid of stuff that I consider not very collectible. I would just say take pictures of all sides and every component because you're a picky collector, so you understand. How many times have you gone on eBay and just you were looking for a specific variant that's on the back of a DVD case, and so you just have to go through 300 listings looking for that variant, and a lot of the times they don't have a picture of the back of the case. So just have good pictures. I try to put my stuff on bubble wrap in the picture to show that I'm actually gonna package it correctly, and then in my description I always put this will ship in a brand new sturdy cardboard box. I'm a collector, I don't ship things like an idiot, something like that, because that is something that gives me a lot of confidence when if I see someone who lists 30 NES games and in their description they say, hey, by the way, this will ship well packed in a lot of bubble wrap in a sturdy cardboard box, then I have I know they're not an idiot.
Yep. And I think the last thing, if you were trying to sell your whole collection, I really do think it's advantageous to get a booth at a show and, get some help and try and do it there. Because if you're trying to move a ton of games, if you have thousands or hundreds of games, you're going to be better served there. And you're going to have a large market of people buying it. eBay for one-offs for sure. Put the rest of it, whatever doesn't sell there, get it all on eBay and buy your shipping stuff in bulk.
That's it. Maybe I'll try selling with you one of these days at a show. Maybe I'll bring all my Wii games. But who is buying this shit? Because I look at the vendors and it's this wasteland of Wii and Xbox 360 and PS3 and who is gonna want my Wii games?
You would be surprised. Look at all the Xbox 360 games that are selling now, and we have been on record of saying that was a wasteland. And
the last time we were at Portland, there was Xbox 360 dollar bins because people are just I don't want to bring these home. Literally take them for free.
Yeah, but when we went to Milwaukee, what happened? Xbox is the hottest collectible there is right now.
Johnny, Milwaukee was it was 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. It was the worst. I cannot imagine manning that booth. I don't know how Mike and Jay did it. I'm not flying across the country on my weekend off to sit at a booth for 11 hours or whatever ridiculous nonsense Milwaukee. It was it was 11 hours. That was a day.
Sounds terrible. All right. That's it. That was a Tyler talk. If you were a new collector and you needed some help and you wanted to talk to an expert, I brought on Tyler to his very own podcast to talk about how best to do that.
There's a lot of pressure,
That's what
Johnny,
this
calling
episode
me
was.
an expert.
You're
We
an
probably
expert. Give me a
have
break.
whatever the opposite of a fan is. We probably have ops out there who think that we're like, we do stuff wrong.
Oh, I'm sure we have people who think we do wrong. I'm sure we get things. I mean, we know we get things wrong, and I'm sure, there's a bunch of people who dislike us, and that's okay. But I think in general, what we have going for us is, one, we're never trying to take advantage of people. We're not out for the money or the likes. We like what we're doing. We're passionate about it, and we are generally well-intentioned humans.
That's true. You know what? Another great reason not to speculate on random stupid video games is because the second you think that Soloto Robo on 3DS is the next $1,000 video game, all of a sudden you have to be out there on social media like promoting your investment, and then you become that guy who's just always bringing up Soloto Robo wherever you can. You're like, and then the algorithm picks up on it and it shows you every new post of Soloto Robo, and you're like, oh yeah, great get, man. I think Soloto Robo is really going to the moon. And you have that used car salesman desperate feel about you whenever you bring up this game that you probably like. By the way, guys, Japanese computer games. Oh my God. Japanese PC 88 games. They are just going to the moon. People, you don't even know. Mugen no Shinzo 2 we were just talking about on Discord. What were we posting? We're posting some like the original Koei games that come in the small cardboard boxes with the cassettes. Though a lot of those are worth hundreds of dollars. I think those are going up to at least $100,000.
Oh yeah.
You got to get in on these Koei PC 88 games, guys. I'm telling you. Please, I need to send my kids to college.
I'm not going to eat tonight if I don't get one more sale, man. Yeah. That's it, Tyler. We did it. We did the thing. Let's move to the second half of the show. You answered a lot of questions. Do you feel like skipping a collector's question today?
No, Johnny, we're not. We need to get through our backlog of questions that we always have.
Just asking. Tyler, I did something over the week. I did all my Halloween stuff. If you guys missed it, there's 31 videos that I posted, and I actually have a 30-second video where I posted just a dumb meme. Did you see my dumb meme video that I made?
No. Which video?
So it's the guy with the beach balls, and I posted how conversations with video game collectors sound to normal people, and it's a deleted scene from, I'm not sure if it's from the Best in Show, but it's from that troupe. And it's the same character that carries over. And it's a guy just talking about his beach ball collection. And it sounds ridiculous. And it's just a funny little clip, right? I put this out, and I put it on YouTube, and I put it on Instagram. It is now my most watched video on YouTube by a fair margin.
Wait, what happened? It's not. Oh, is this a short? It doesn't look like a short.
Yeah, it's a short.
Okay.
It has 24,000 views. The first 2 days, it did nothing. I don't know what happened on the third day. It turned around, which is not typically how these videos go. It's just now standing at 24,000 views, and the amount of comments that it has is ridiculous. It's got 158 comments. I know the ratio on that isn't great, but this is a meme video. This is not a place to go engage in a conversation. It's so where you go you just lull or thumbs up it, or that's true, these kind of comments. But Tyler, somehow I rage baited people with this. People were offended. Some people, most people laughed. People were like, I actually don't think this is a good comparison. I think books are a better comparison than beach balls. Yeah, obviously. What? People are answering seriously.
Personally, Johnny, I'm sorry for people on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. A lot of people consume short form content, but it is literally the most brainless thing you can do is scrolling through short form content. So Johnny, the fact that you're getting brainless responses is not that surprising.
I am just shocked at I was look, I'm not going to say I'm not above it. I'll doom scroll like anybody else, but I have never once been I should comment on this. Have you I should put, not just a little comment. Tyler, we're talking paragraphs. I have minor essays in here.
This is
like,
why
wow,
these
Jane
people
Schaefer
are
would
out
be
there. This is
proud.
why I will never read a review of the show, and I have YouTube videos with hundreds of thousands of views that I will never read a single comment on because I'm scared of the stupid people. I don't want stupid people on the internet making me feel bad because, like, there are just mean and wrong people out there, and I don't want to respond to them, and I don't want to see how much of that is on my videos.
Well, but when you make content like that, you're making thoughtful and incisive videos that are about something. I tried to do the same with my dumb Halloween posts. It's like, they're quick form, like, I just want to introduce you to this game. This is just a meme. I just posted a meme and people want to have a serious discussion about it.
So, I mean, there's probably people who think like you're a trading card collector or something and you're trying to shit on video game collectors, not realizing that you are a video game collector shitting on video game collectors.
I'm not even shitting on them. I'm like, this is just how it sounds. And it's not even a bad thing. All collectors communities have insular language, right? And that's how you know you're part of a community. You share a certain speech bubble with them and you all talk. And like, if I was playing Magic, I'm like, oh yeah, I tapped that for 2. I really like this card, but 2 green for a 6/6, that's like really overstated. Like, to a normal person, there's like, what are you even talking about? To another Magic player, that all makes sense. And that was like really the point of this. It's, this is how hobbies sound to anyone. I could have put any hobby. I could repost this video 30 times in 30 different hobbies and everyone would have the same reaction. Because it's just true for collecting, it's collecting is funny because it does this thing, not you're bad at because you do this thing. Anyways, I just thought the realm of like conversations that happened, and this video's been up 3 or 4 days now. I'm like, I don't know what's going on that people are this engaged with this damn short, but people are enjoying it. It's a funny short. I enjoy it, but I did not expect I did not expect to read paragraphs. And I'm like, I can't even respond. Like I see this response on here and anything I say, this person is just going to want to fight me. So there's no good way to even respond to it. Anyways,
yeah,
I was just killing some time as you found a question, but yeah, it has been a wild experience for me.
I mean, the general internet sucks. This is why I'm all about getting into like your small niche community of like people you actually care about, who you know their names and you know what they're into, and it's just a lot more fun. I don't know, maybe you like being out there in the ether with like 1,000 people who interact with your post for 3 seconds. I like the small group of people getting to know each other more. I mean, but I've also met people on social media. I'm not saying that's bad. But Johnny, I think it is important. Your stupid short, where a guy just shows off his beach ball collection to people who, believe it or not, don't care about beach balls as much as he does. As funny as that is, it is like also very true for any collectible. I think people who collect anything, but I can specifically speak from the perspective of video games because I know a lot of video game collectors. They put a massively outsized importance on what they collect compared to what a normal person thinks. A normal person does not care about the Nintendo Entertainment System. You might think about it all day. You might think like, oh my God, NES is so historically important. This is where Nintendo first started. Oh my God, Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Magic of Scheherazade. This has everything on it. And just like even someone into video games probably thinks you're just like a crazy psychopath hoarder. Collectors are not normal is a good thing to keep in mind, I will say, Johnny.
Yes, I agree. And that's why the video was titled how conversations with video game collectors sound to normal people. Not that I think there's a really good definition of normal. Anyways, funny meme. You got a question for us?
Chefish asks, what do you find more enjoyable, the get or the chase? Did we already ask this question?
I don't know. That's the get.
It's definitely the get. I find the chase so stressful. What I really enjoy, the best thing for me, I have something. So I have the placeholder and I'm trying to upgrade it in some way. So I'm looking for the better variant, or maybe I'm just looking for a better condition or something. But like at the end of the day, the checkbox is already checked, so I'm not dying. Then the chase is fun because like I could put in a snipe and I'm like not sweating it. But when I put in the snipe and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just going to put like $555. I have to win this for an item that's worth like $60. And I'm just like hoping that no one else is fucking crazy. Then I'm sweating it. That's not fun to me. Then only the get is exciting in that place.
I agree.
Peaceful asks, one-off Lego sets are a hit these days. If you could choose any scene from The Last of Us 1 or 2 to turn into a Lego set, what would it be?
Ooh, definitely the one where Joel gets killed.
So, I mean, the two obvious ones, I think, are Joel getting killed and it's not a spoiler at this point, that game's old, but the doctor getting killed.
Well, it's going to be a spoiler for the people watching the season 2 coming out.
Oh, no, I wasn't even thinking about that. If something happens like 5 minutes into a game, I'm going to say it's just not a spoiler. Like, it was a spoiler before that game came out. But if you've seen any footage of The Last of Us 2, you're probably like, oh, where's Joel?
Yeah.
I think the doctor scene, just Joel shooting the doctor, would be a funny Lego set. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't make that one, though. They'd probably make like, oh, it's Ellie on horseback in the burnt out city.
I think, yeah, like Ellie and Joel looking at the giraffes from the campus, I think would be a good one-off scene.
Or it'd be like Ellie playing guitar or something.
Yeah, from like Last of Us 2, I think it would be that. But also, that like brick-built figures never look good, so I wouldn't want that. That's why I like the minifigure. Like, you could do they have good brick-built giraffes, so you could have like that scene. Also, like Joel and Tess when they like the first clicker encounter.
Ellie's a really bad person. Don't celebrate her with a statue. It's like having a statue of Darth Vader, but like legitimately being on the Empire's side. That's how I feel about Ellie statues.
What do you mean? We'll have to fight about it later. She's not the hero?
Ellie is not the hero. No, Ellie is not.
What about Joel? Joel's a hero.
Joel is also not the hero.
You might say there's no heroes in that game. There's no good people left.
Yes, it is. That's why, and a lot of people call The Last of Us, they actually call it No More Heroes, is actually the other name for that game. That's why you might have seen that phrase kicking around.
Oh.
I like stories that don't have a hero. I like stories that are all bad guys, no good guys. What I don't like is how The Last of Us 2, like the way they frame Ellie's story in the first third of the game, they like frame it like Ellie's the good guy. And it's like so obvious. It's like, no, Ellie's not a good person. What the fuck are you talking about? And I'm talking, I don't know.
Well, this is moral relativism, right? So it's hard to determine that because what we define as good and bad may not be exactly the same as what's going on in that world.
I tangentially remember the Last of Us 2 plot. I remember it being like Ellie hellbent on deadly revenge. I don't think there's like a justifiable it's just a bad world these days. So if you need to go get your deadly revenge, go get it. Johnny Joe asks, I don't know what he's asking. Something about Discord. Oh, no, damn it, Joe, why are you asking? This is the wrong place to ask this. Tom Nook asks, which console has the superior RPG library, both from a gameplay and collector's standpoint? And it's obviously Super Nintendo or PS1.
And PlayStation 1. Yeah, those are the only two conversations that make any sense.
Well, see, that's not because like if you open it up to like PS4 and Switch, I bet.
Oh, sure.
Or even like PS2. I think a lot of Japanese consoles have really killer RPG lineup.
Switch.
I can't think.
The Switch is going to be the winner.
Yeah. You can't really say that like old RPGs are better. I think there is an argument to say like I really prefer how old platformers feel compared to old or to newer ones sometimes. But man, I feel like there's a lot of bullshit in old RPGs that they've really kind of fixed up in newer RPGs. Like fucking endless random battles every 4 steps.
That's part of the fun. That's part of the charm.
Have I played enough PS1 RPGs? I don't know if I've played enough PS1 RPGs to have a real opinion. I've only played.
I'm
like
still giving the
hits.
nod to Super Nintendo. And are we talking Super Nintendo, just Super Nintendo, or are we including Super Famicom in there, or is it just US Super Nintendo?
I mean, I don't know how many RPGs are collectible on the Super Famicom, just because they're going to be so common and cheap most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, but if we're including the whole thing, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I one Super Nintendo more collectible than PlayStation. It just is. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like not even a contest.
No. Yeah, I think they're both great. It's like you're not going wrong with any of them. Like you have some really great games, but I think Super Nintendo still swings it. A little more basic, maybe worse RPGs. If you really are a Final Fantasy VII person, then you might be like, oh, PS1. But like if you're a Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 3 person, then you're looking at that Super Nintendo hard. Even though Chrono Cross is an amazing game, you're like, people aren't out there singing the praises of Chrono Cross every single day. Most people have forgot that stupid game even exists. And that game was like a 10, called one of the best games on the PlayStation of all time when it first came out. It also kind of depends on what you consider an RPG. Some people are like, Symphony of the Night has RPG elements, so it's an RPG. And then other people are like, Zelda's an RPG. And you're like, okay, what are we even talking about here? So even given all of that stuff, I am still inclined to give the nod to Super Nintendo. And that's not to shit on the PS1 at all, because I think it's an amazing system for RPGs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Super Nintendo's more collectible. It's got the boxes and it's got all the franchises as well. And I think for most PS1 games, if there is a great game, a Final Fantasy 7 or 9, not 8, you've got Final Fantasy 6 on Super Nintendo, which is, basically an equal tier with Final Fantasy 7. Chrono Cross, you got Chrono Trigger. Final Fantasy Tactics. There are 3 Fire Emblem games on Super Famicom. It's just the quantity and the quality is just there for the.
You don't have Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest on the Super Nintendo unless you bring in the Famicom. You have Suikoden on the Super Nintendo or on the PS1. You have Xenogears, but I'm not like really.
I mean, there's
Valkyrie
stuff on
Profile.
the SNES that you can't get on PS1 too.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to like get a like Persona, Parasite Eve. I'm trying to like go through like what swings it if anything. And
what about Kingsfield 1 through 3, Johnny? Don't have any good dungeon crawlers on Super Nintendo. Don't give me that Dungeon Master
Ultima?
shit.
How about all the Ultimas on Super Nintendo?
The bootleg versions of Ultima. There is an exclusive Ultima on Super Famicom, which is terrible and very weird.
I mean,
you know
Super
what?
Mario RPG,
Right,
people love.
Kingsfield is like kind of bad, and the Super Nintendo Ultimas are like kind of bad. So I'm gonna call them equal.
Okay. You do have Earthbound, Ogre Battle, also on the PS1, Super Mario RPG, Secret of Mana, if you count that. Breath of Fire 2 is better than all the Breath of Fires on the PS1. Sorry, guys.
Is that real?
Final Fantasy.
I've only heard that like Breath of Fire 2 is the most boring generic RPG ever. I've never played it.
I really like Breath of Fire 2. Breath of Fire 6... or Breath of Fire 5 or 4 and 5.
Is there a Breath of Fire 6?
Yeah, there is. I think it's called
something. It came out in 2016.
It's on the PS2. Yeah. Front missions. This might even just come down to personal taste, but I'm still inclined to give the nod over to Super Nintendo, especially when you add collectability.
All right, Johnny.
That's my answer.
The next question's big, so we're going to save it for the next show.
All right, we did it.
Did we? Are you not going to tell us what you're buying, what you're playing?
No, we did the questions. I'm just going to ask you. So, Tyler, what are you buying and what are you playing?
Let me bring up eBay. Let me see if I actually bought something.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you what I bought while you look? Tyler, do you remember the last episode where we talked about historical Halloween firsts?
Yeah, I sure do. It was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. and we were like looking at stuff that we could buy, and I was like, we were suggesting stuff. Well, I bought some of those things. Hey, I remember we talked about that game, The Count, which I already own, and then I was like, hey, there's one actually on the VIC-20, which also has like pretty good box art.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I bought that one.
That's not surprising to me at all.
No, I bought a game called Paper Dolls, which is an exclusive to, well, not exclusive, but it's in Europe and Asia, and I got a copy of that. But hey, also on the VIC-20, Commodore 64, Grave Robbers. Got Grave Robbers. Pretty rare game. Came with the instructions. I think it's a baggy game, but it might just be in this cassette. I really want to see how this was sold. Like, this is the problem with like old cassette games. You never know exactly what the packaging looked like. I also got that Poltergeist because it was the same seller. I was like, well, might as well grab that Poltergeist, even though it didn't have the instruction. But I was like, I've never seen this version of the Poltergeist.
You'll never find it.
I know, but I'm comfortable owning it as is for the $10 I spent on it. Not a big deal. Yeah, I bought that. Oh, and then Tyler, we talked about a game called Graveyardage. Definitely the precursor to Mutant League Football. I bought that as well. So I'm like, this will be great for the last Sunday of October. And that's what I posted.
So you always say, whenever we talk about some stupid horror game, you're like, oh, wait until Christmas because people aren't buying horror games after Halloween. And you're like the only person I know who goes like super hard on a specific theme because it's in season. And you don't even follow your own advice because you're buying all this stuff during the Halloween season.
No, Tyler, I bought so much. Do you know how many games I bought this year that like fit under Halloween? I could literally go Halloween all year round. I have over 365 I could post for this year.
Wow.
Not that I bought all in this year, but I could literally do that. And like a lot of my videos, I'll show off like 2 games, like, oh, here's this version or that version. It's when we're doing the episodes, I'm like, oh, I found out about this one. This is cool. This is like a good deal. So I'll grab it anyways. But no, I generally believe you should not buy any of the main Halloween. Like you shouldn't buy your Silent Hill 2 right now. This is not the time to buy Silent Hill 2.
Because okay? LJN just put out a great episode on Silent Hill 2.
Right, because everybody's putting out a video. Copy. Everybody's putting out videos on Silent Hill and Resident Evil. Definitely they're doing that. So now is not the time to buy those games where the hype is the highest. Paper Dolls on the PS4 and The Count on the Commodore, like the VIC-20 version. Not real worried about the demand on that in the middle of October. I will say that the inventory on most games is probably going to be lower, but like Graveyardage, you want to know what I paid for Graveyardage? $12.
Hell yeah.
Poltergeist, $10. Grave Robbers, $25. Paper Dolls, $18. Did I say The Count? Yeah, $15. That's wasn't a huge expenditure on my part. Yeah, I think last week I told you I bought Stone Prophet, the other Ravenloft game. Got that big box PC for $40. Woo!
These are the kind of nickel and dime purchases, kids, that will prevent you from buying Donkey Kong Jr. Math.
I already own Donkey Kong Jr. Math.
Man, I don't. And I never will, because, man, what is that game? $5,000 complete in box?
I don't.
That is the worst way to spend $5,000.
It is. Well, that's what, when we get into overrated and stuff you shouldn't spend your money on, like, remember Donkey Kong Jr.
You know, Johnny, it's not only a Nintendo game, it's a Donkey Kong game. Well, actually, it's a Donkey Kong Jr. game.
No, it's not a Donkey Kong game. It's a Donkey Kong Jr., who is a different character.
Yeah.
This isn't Donkey Kong Jr. as in for kids, like Donkey Kong Jr. for your juniors. This is Donkey Kong Jr., the son or whatever of Donkey Kong.
But what's the lore? Like, isn't there some lore into like modern DK actually being DK Jr. or something? Or am I crazy?
I don't know. Why would I investigate
There's
that?
some crazy lore where like Donkey Kong Jr. is actually Donkey Kong, I think.
Oh my God, that is very stupid. There's also more games with like Stanley and Pauline. You're just like, what is happening? They have more history.
I think Donkey Kong Jr. Math is stupid, but it's not the most stupid.
Overrated?
Yeah, it's overrated.
All right. Tyler, what did I play? I almost asked what you did. What did I play? Do you want to be shocked?
Yeah. Oh my God, is it Diablo 4? I don't even want to.
I did play Diablo 4. Yeah, I played Diablo 4.
Okay.
My buddy came down and he visited, and I was like, for sure, he's going to want to play RPGs. He's like, one of the things we did as kids is we played a ton of RPGs, and I'm like, all right. He says he's bringing his controllers down. I'm ready to play whatever game he wants to play. We'll be playing stuff. It'll be good. I can talk about something else on the podcast. Maybe I can talk him into a horror game. He wanted to do none of that, Tyler. I'm like, you don't want to play any games? She's like, nah, like, let's catch up on some horror movies and like shows and stuff. And I was like, okay. I mean, it was nice. We had fun, but it was not what I expected to happen.
We also watched a lot of Halloween. Together. I tried to get him to play Mario Party 3 with me, but we watched House of Usher instead. So kind of the same thing here.
Yeah. Which House of Usher?
The new the Mike Flanagan one, the Netflix thing.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
I like Michael Flanagan, so like whatever. I'm here for him.
He's the pretty goodest horror director, I think.
Yeah, and he likes Stephen King, and he's supposed to do The Dark Tower. I'm very excited. Come on, Mike Flanagan, deliver.
I thought
he's a big Stephen King fan.
Yeah, if you haven't watched House of Usher, I thought it was just going to be bad Succession, but it's more like okay Succession, and also mixed in with every Edgar Allan Poe story.
Yeah,
it's pretty fun. I thought it was just going to be like House of Usher, but it's just every Edgar Allan Poe story. It's almost like an anthology series, but it's not. It's good.
Yep, I enjoyed it. Also, check out Haunting of Bly Manor and Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, you could skip Bly Manor.
I thought it was good.
Don't skip Ouija Origin of Evil, Johnny. I love that movie.
Do you? Do you like Oculus?
We've probably talked about this. I don't think I've seen Oculus.
Oh, he did Oculus as well.
He's pretty good. I don't think any of his stuff's like my favorite. It's all just kind of like pretty good.
Did he do Oculus? Am I confusing that?
No, we've had this conversation before, so I think he probably did do Oculus.
Okay.
Yeah, he did.
Anyways. Tyler, what did you play besides not Mario 3?
What did I play, Johnny? We're going backwards for me. Well, there is this game, Parkitect, that was on sale on Steam that I've been wanting to play with my wife, and we've been playing the hell out of it. It is basically Roller Coaster Tycoon 3.
Love Roller Coaster Tycoon. Who doesn't?
Yeah, and so there's all these like shitty ripoffs of Roller Coaster Tycoon. Like literally every theme park management game ever is just trying to be Roller Coaster Tycoon or Theme Park, like the game Theme Park, but better. And they're all worse because everyone who has played this genre has played so much fucking Roller Coaster Tycoon that we don't want anything to be like different. We don't want a better roller coaster design interface. We just want the fucking Roller Coaster Tycoon roller coaster design interface. And so when they like start changing up everything and trying to improve it, I just get frustrated. I'm like, Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 is one of the best games ever made. So why am I going to put up with this shit when I could just be playing more Roller Coaster Tycoon 2? And so what Parkitect does, they literally cribbed everything from Roller Coaster Tycoon. Same interface, same rides, like the haunted house, the slide, everything looks the same. And it's just got like a little bit better. It's like a little bit more detailed on some of the management you could do in the park and a little bit more design you could put into the coasters. And I really like it. And I realize it was on sale for so much because Planet Coaster 2 is coming out in like 2 days. So I really should have just waited for that to come out instead because this game's like 10 years old. But anyway, it's a lot of fun if you like Roller Coaster Tycoon. It also, Roller Coaster Tycoon is a very exploitable game that has basically no challenge. You could make a park full of 100 coasters that have a single track segment, and your guests would think it's the greatest park ever. And they have a lot of economic changes to remove that exploitability, which I appreciate. It makes the game harder.
You do like it when it's harder.
I do like it when it's harder. Johnny, you want to know what I bought?
I do.
I think you'll appreciate this. Johnny, I've got a sealed copy of Computer Bismarck for the Apple II. I bought a complete in-box copy to go with it because I really like this game. This is...
you were wrong in your assessment of I would be happy about this, but go on.
And this is not really a cheap game either. It's the first SSI game. Oh, I love this so much. so the RPG and wargaming company SSI, this was their first. Was this their first game? Am I wrong about that? Yeah, no, this was their first game. Okay. Which also makes it the first commercial computer war game, and it has like an argument for being the first computer game that came in a box. So SSI was coming to market, and they wanted, and games at this point were sold in baggies, and they wanted to show like we're serious about the computer gaming market, that we're going to include a box, and the box is full of maps. It comes with like those like oily pencils for you to mark up your maps. It's like a game for serious nerds that, like, if you are a human being listening to this podcast, you will not play this game, including me. I will never play this game. I just appreciate the SSI history of it.
High praise.
Gianni, I got a Japanese copy of Cosmology of Kyoto.
Woo! That's the one I want to hear about.
Yeah! That weird game, you talked about it last time, so everyone knows Cosmology of Kyoto. The weird Japanese adventure. You called it edutainment, which I thought was pretty funny. I mean, I guess it is maybe educational.
They're teaching about the like folklore of Japan and their how they view death and stuff. You are in a teaching sim.
It is from that era of 1993, 1994, where everything released onto computers was the most amazing piece of multimedia art. You did not need to be a designer. You did not need to be a programmer. Just something about, if you released a product in that 2-year period, you could just throw something together and put it on shelves. And I don't think Cosmology of Kyoto is thrown together. I think it's a really interesting piece of art. But, you know, I've talked about this a lot because it is a game I'm interested in, and I've never owned any version of it. And yeah, one came up and I got it. It's the
I'm
first
glad we
print.
both have this, which is weird.
Also, every once in a while, there's a game that is like, it's rare and it's not important, but it's like collectible and like a little pricey. And man, it has the name to go with it. And Cosmology of Kyoto is one of those games. It's almost like the Diamond Trust of London. Just like, yeah, that is a really weird, specific, and unique name that I bet that game's kind of collectible.
100% agree with you.
All right. What was the thing that the Diamond Trust of London guy did?
What do you mean?
That was made by a guy who did other things I was interested in. Was it that? Oh, he's made Passage, just like a weird indie game. Like before indie games were really popular, he made a very popular indie game called Passage. Maybe that was it.
He had that game was a Diamond Trust of London. He got the minimum you could do, which I think was 3,500 at the time for the DS.
3,500.
Which
yeah. I thought it was 1,000. It doesn't matter.
It was something like that. It's a small number. It says the edition size. You could actually Google that and find out. But yeah, there's some interesting. That game provides some interesting facts. Go look at Diamond Trust of London.
He releases like half of his games to public domain, which is so funny. Like he's got a Diamond Trust of London is public domain. And one of his most recent games is an MMO burglary and home defense game called The Castle Doctrine. And it's being sold on Steam, but it's also public domain. This guy is an artist, okay?
Yeah. Or he's a criminal. Him. All right, that's the show, Tyler. We did it.
It's a long one. We haven't had a long one in a while.
Yeah, this Tyler talk went longer than I thought. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with us. I hope you had a great Halloween. I hope you're looking forward to the holidays as they get ever closer to us. That's it for the show. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for all those who support us on Patreon. We'll talk to you next time. Bye!